1, 2, 3, 4.
In this podcast, you will hear Knights of Vader. Knights of Vader includes, but is not limited to, talk of Star Wars, not recounts. We can't truly prepare you for the jump that follows this song, but hey, we gave it a try. So here's the Knights of Vader. Crystal Fox reports they are divided. Prequel, sequel, canon, love they fight. I know that we are just musicians hired, and their time is up. So here's the Knights of Vader.
Impressive. Most impressive.
Thank you, the Bengals, for winning and getting to the AFC Championship. I'm sure somebody sings our intro music, but this is more important. Today is January 22nd of 2022. The Bengals have officially made the AFC Championship. Will they win it? Are they going to the Super Bowl? We don't know. That's future us to find out. But in the meantime, we're going to be discussing something far more nerdier than football. Zack's trip to Florida. Anyways, you got me, Zenger. Zack, introduce yourself. God dang it.
I am the focus of this episode. It's weird not to, like, for the first time ever in Zenger, almost 5 years doing this podcast, not be the one leading it while on the call. So, yeah, I'm a nerd on the internet talking about Star Wars who went and spent thousands of dollars to the Walt Disney Company. Thank you.
We got Joe. How's it going today, Joe?
Hey, good to be seen. Good to be seen. Welcome back, Zack.
And of course, the Porteous with the Mortius, Chris Porteous.
Very excited to be here to discuss how exactly somehow Zack has returned from the unknown regions.
True. But in an effort to, Zack forced a episode of ZengThis to happen by just sheerly saying, wait, Ellie went to Disney and went to the Star Wars stuff? We need to do an episode. And somehow, months later, Knights of Vader in all of its glory decided to steal from ZengThis to do it with Zack's trip to the same area. So, Zack, you want to give us a quick overview rundown? I guess you went there, you stood in front of the Falcon. Was it everything you dreamed of? How's Book of Boba Fett been? Answer all the following.
Oh, Book of Boba Fett. I weirdly enough, I don't have a problem with the Book of Boba Fett because I think the people making it don't care about Star Wars. They're just like, it's J.J. Abrams' Rise of Skywalker syndrome, where they're just kind of shrugging it off, being like, just get this over with. It's like the equivalent of a bowel movement. Technically, it's a healthy function, but at the same time, I don't think anybody's happy about it either. It's a very unique space we live in currently as a Star Wars fandom, where we're getting new content that we're not mad at, but we're not technically thrilled with either. Again, it's that delightful kind of like period, very reminiscent 20 years ago, in between 2002 and 2005, where everybody was like weirdly content, yet at the same time not thrilled either. I have to ask Zenger though real quick. When we did have that Ellie ZengThis episode, is that technically Zeng Wars because there was some Star Wars content in there?
No, that's just regular ZengThis episode. ZengThis episode 271 of the podcast, and we are on episode. No, actually, it's only because it was referenced in the most recent Knights of Vader episode, so I know it off the top of my head because of that. Thank you, Chris, for that. And we are on episode 289 of ZengThis, so that's a good judge of how long it's been.
It's been a while. All right. So, like I said, I have, as everybody knows, as Zenger knows, I would say this Disney recounting is going to be very similar to like a theater going experience. As in there's going to be copious amount of details that are probably superfluous, but I'm going to state them for the record anyway. At any point in this, feel free to interrupt, tell me to shut up if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or snide remarks. So like, again, copious amount of planning went into this. For the record, for those who have not listened, there's been numerous theme park episodes on Knights of Vader. They were, I think, like some of the most like downloaded episodes back in the day. Now most of our Mandalorian and Rise of Skywalker stuff is usurped that. As a kid, I was a huge Disney theme park fan. I lived in Florida for the first 12 years of my life in Pasco County. Because of my brother and his family, we, for a period there between 2002 and 2003, almost once a month, we would go over to the Disney parks. So that's usually that's when I cut my teeth on a lot of this. and have ever since then, even moving to New York, I was always obsessed with Disney theme park stuff, whether it be through just like DVDs, books, later in life YouTube. Just like I lived in this culture, I adored it. But it wasn't until I'd say the last 5 years or so where I really kind of checked out, because it became almost mentally draining when it came to the amount of like research you had to do to understand all the facets of the park. So I did check out. But in preparation for this trip, I did like an insane amount of research. Originally, I wanted to go to Universal Orlando because I just did not want to go through all the effort to like figure out all the hoops I had to jump through to do Disney correctly, efficiently. That's just something that's just hardwired in my brain. If I'm going to spend the money on something, I want to do it right, or I don't want to do it at all. What really kind of caused me to switch from going from Universal Studios to Disney was that probably one of my favorite rides of all time, Revenge of the Mummy, was going for refurbishment, I think like January 10th. And as soon as I saw that, I'm like, no, like I'm not a Harry Potter fan. Everything I love about Universal Studios is now gone, whether it be Jaws, Back to the Future, Terminator. It's all gone. So I'm like, I'm not a Harry Potter fan. So I'm like, I'm not going to spend the money for something that I'm just kind of going to casually shrug my shoulders at. So I went and bought a copy of the Unofficial Guide to Walt Disney World, the most recent edition, the 2022 edition. That's co-written by Len Testa, who we actually had on this podcast back in the early days of the podcast. I think at that point it was still Star Wars junk. And I did like the copious amounts of research for that. I booked a hotel stay at the Walt Disney Dolphin, which is not owned by Disney, but it's in the pantheon of on Disney resorts. So it would get you the early hour admission into the parks. That was a nightmare because however I bought everything, I kind of piecemealed when I did this. I bought the theme park tickets from Disney, bought the hotel stay from Priceline, I think. And when I did all this, it split everything up. And for some reason, I wasn't able to do the My Magic mobile pass, which basically is the thing you have to have. It's basically something that goes into your Apple Wallet or I don't know if it is on Android, the equivalent. It wouldn't let me do that. So I signed up for the Genie Plus service, which basically is the new version of FastPass, but you have to pay for it. And because of this, I was kind of afraid because I'm like, well, I paid for the service. And if I can't add it to my Apple Wallet, what's going to happen once I get there? So I made numerous phone calls to Disney guest services. The last phone call, which eventually fixed my problem, because the previous phone calls didn't. I literally dialed the phone number 5 minutes after 7 a.m. Eastern, and I didn't get connected to the appropriate cast member until 11:30 in the morning. I was on hold for roughly 4.5 hours trying to get to the right people that actually knew how to solve this problem. They kept escalating me to a higher IT team, and every single one couldn't solve my problem until eventually what we figured out what happened was I was doing everything under my dead father's account. And they're eventually like, oh, so like that's the thing. You're not George Weber. And I'm like, no, I'm Zack. And they're like, oh, can we speak to George? And I'm like, unfortunately, you can't because he's in a different realm of existence right now than the rest of us, which is a fabulous conversation to have with somebody at 11 a.m. On a Saturday morning. So eventually they got it all relatively fixed because at the Hollywood Studios gate, there was an issue that I will get to in due time. But no, so yeah, everything's a goddamn issue. So what happened was my girlfriend and I, Rachel, she's not a huge Star Wars fan. I just recently, in the last like maybe 6 weeks, introduced her to Star Wars. We've been kind of piecemealing, going through Star Wars, beginning with Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. So
you're watching it in the wrong order. Got it.
There's no right order. There is literally no right order because no matter how you do it, you're ruining it. It's at some level. If I really wanted to be.
Hold on a second. I just realized something. You said how long you've been introducing her to Star Wars?
Over the last 6 weeks.
Okay, I want it on record, Chris, on record, that he introduced her to Dune first, Arrakis, desert planet.
Zenger,
well, yeah, because I was in theaters.
You got to be really careful how you do this stuff. I support your strategy, Zack.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. At one point, before we even started dating, I showed her the first half of Rogue One, and she completely checked out, like any logical person should. What? It's true. Oh, come on. The first half of Rogue One to someone who's never seen a Star Wars movie. Okay. To give a little context on Rachel Rachel's never seen a Star Wars, but she's a huge, and this will definitely play into the story later, a huge Indiana Jones fan. She actually has like an Indiana Jones like Temple of Doom shirt that I've never seen before in my life, that she got like at a Blockbuster like in the early 2000s as like somebody like as a kindergartner. And she wore it on the trip. I'm like, I'm so kind of jealous of this because I've literally never seen this piece of merchandise before, especially that like Indiana Jones merchandise, official Indiana Jones merchandise is so kind of far and few in between. But no, so anyway, though, getting back to the story, she's not really a big Star Wars. It's not even that she dislikes it. It's just like she loves space movies. But really Star Wars is something that really I've kind of shotgun approach with her, just kind of hitting her over the head with it. So getting back to the story, so like we basically got to stay at the Disney Dolphin so we could get that early 30-minute entry into Hollywood Studios. I booked it on January 18th, which is now something you have to do with Disney. You just can't simply buy a ticket. You have to reserve your stay at the park. More Disney is trying to figure all this stuff out. We flew in Sunday afternoon, the Monday, the 17th. We kind of gallivanted around the parks, as in we rode the Skyliner, we rode the boat taxis. We went to Disney Springs, which I will refer to as downtown Disney going forward because that's how I grew up with it. And that's where I really got my first dabbling of just like Star Wars and Disney post Lucasfilm sale, because I have not been to any of these parks since 2007. So really the idea of any of this being officially sanctioned by Disney is a wholly like novel concept to me at the parks. Walking through Disney Springs, downtown Disney, it was weird. Like there are so many shops. That's nothing new, but just the fact that there's shops that are Star Wars exclusive, as in like they actually are just solely Star Wars shops. Like one of the ones I couldn't read, it was called Trading Post. And this was on the side of Disney Springs that had, I think it's the east side, I think by the Rainforest Cafe. I'm not kidding. As soon as I saw this, I actually handed Rachel my wallet and I said, don't let me have this. I said, don't let me have this. Let's kind of like, I cry and beg for it. And as I walked through this shop, it was unusually barren, like almost empty. Like it was shocking what few pieces of merchandise they had. They had again, a lot of this, I imagine Chris has seen in his travels. They had a DJ Rex Bluetooth speaker, which I've seen now for a couple of years floating around. Really cool. Until I saw the price tag of like, I think $130 or $150. And I was like, no. And they had some other cool things, like, and Chris has probably definitely seen this. It's the Droid Factory Sandcrawler playset. And they had that, and that was really kind of like, okay, like a lot of these things I've seen online for the last how many years, and it's cool to see them in person. Like that was probably from an action figure perspective that was the most impressive thing.
Yeah, that's one of those pieces that the modern 3 3/4 collectors were pretty excited about when it came out a couple of years ago, just because it's definitely the biggest Sandcrawler that's ever come out.
Yeah. So I guess they had that. They had some few things from Galaxy's Edge, Black Spire Outpost. Like they had a bust of Luke Skywalker from Crate for $130. I'm like, this is really neat, but like it feels so out of place here. They had a couple other things like a Darth Vader Mustafar castle, a Sith chalice, like a Supreme Leader Snoke sitting on his throne. I was really curious that if there was a little thing that like a little magnet inside, maybe that lets like the top half fall off. Didn't get to test that out in real time. But really, and I think they had a couple of things. They had like some of the Black Spire Outpost animal stable figures. Like there was like a Bantha, a Tauntaun. Maybe one of my favorite pieces of merchandise that I didn't buy. It was a Loth Cat, where if you pull the front legs forward, it actually hissed at you. Probably my biggest regret not buying it, because it's one of those things now that I'm like, oh, it was kind of goofy, but I loved it so much. Kind of like with Chris and his lizard monkey shoulder perch, which I didn't see.
Yeah, I eBayed that like the week the park opened. I had no self-control at all.
But yeah, really. But like when it came to this like trading post on the east side of Disney Springs, severely underwhelming in a merchandise sense, because like I wholeheartedly like had a budget of like just like stuff that I was willing to spend money on if it really kind of like captured my imagination. And I kind of shocked, like initially I was just kind of like, I walked out really not wanting anything, and I'm like, oh geez, like it was like that post Force Awakens feeling of like am I a bad Star Wars fan if I didn't want to buy anything? But no, this is where the story becomes a little bit more interesting. And just one little bit of information I kind of want to just rewind to. For those of you at home, I have a tendency to kind of just pinball all over around. I want to say about like 3 to 5 days before my trip, every morning, because I wake up at an ungodly time of the morning, around 3 a.m. for work. So as soon as I woke up, I always checked the My Disney Experiences app to see if any reservations open for anything. And one of the things that did open about 5 days in advance was for Savi's workshop, which is the lightsaber building experience, which will definitely play in later in the day. Later in the story. So basically after I did the Star Wars trading post, one of my brothers who still lives in Florida, he came to Disney Springs to see me, and we went to Jock Lindsay's bar, which for any Indiana Jones fans in the audience know that's the name of the pilot from the opening of Raiders of the Lost Ark that has like the pontoon plane. And we went in there, and that was like maybe one of the best parts of this entire trip. It is insanely small, this bar. And I should also say that like the week I picked to go to Florida, the temperature was roughly, for the first 2 days, was roughly in the early 60s and had at least like 20-mile-per-hour gust. So like I legit had pants and like a hoodie on, and you kind of needed that because the wind just went right through you. Anybody who knows Disney Springs, like basically it's a bunch of just like spaces where the wind just becomes a wind tunnel. And so originally when we waited online for about 20 minutes, and they seated us outside. And then like, once you realize that like with the wind gust, like the temperature felt like somewhere in the high 40s, we were like, yeah, can we sit inside, please? And lucky enough, we got a table inside, but it was like definition of tiny. Like you're talking maybe at most a dozen to 14 tables inside. I mean, like almost abhorrent. Like I have no idea how this thing could have functioned like in fully COVID times where like you could do it at half capacity. You'd be lucky if that, like, I don't know how you could sustain the operating cost. But no, that was a really, really neat experience. I got this, oh God, green drink, some sort of alcoholic beverage. It has some sort of vodka in it. And I'm like, okay. And it had like this on the bar counter. It was in this like really neat looking, oh God, like I don't even know what you would call it, like container where they had like bubbles like kind of going through it. So it was constantly just having that oh God, when you put the fizz into it, carbonated effect. And so basically I asked the bartender, I'm like, I want one of those, whatever that is. It was good, it tasted great. A theme of this trip was definitely that the Disney bars are the highlight of going there. But that was neat. We got some appetizers, which were overpriced, but I felt like the ambiance alone kind of paid for everything. So that was neat. Like as a Lucasfilm property, I think that was the first thing Disney did with the Lucasfilm property post the sale was the Jock Lindsay's bar experience. And it was neat.
How subtle did you find the decoration there? Like, was that something you had on the agenda before you went in, or did you notice it while you were there?
I was passively aware of it as a thing because at first my girlfriend and Rachel and I walked throughout all of Disney Springs. And as soon as I saw it, my brain kind of just like my instant recall memory said, aha, like, oh, I'm like, oh, that's the Indiana Jones bar. Cause like from what I could tell, to be fair, I didn't go through the place with a magnifying glass. There's nothing there that would tell you it's connected to Indiana Jones. You'd have to know Jock Lindsay is a Indiana Jones IP character.
Isn't that such a weird, like, I'm sure people have spoke about this ad nauseum, but like, that just seems so baffling to me that it's like, you have to know what you're looking for to be marketed to in this one instance.
It's definitely a weird thing that we'll get into with like Galaxy's Edge, in that Disney made a lot of creative choices with I at the very least Lucasfilm properties, that you have to know what it is you're looking at to appreciate it. Otherwise, you're just doing it for the sake of doing it. They are playing to a very specific crowd, And it's that, again, we'll definitely get into this with the Galaxy's Edge stuff. Because I think a lot of it, like getting into specific parts of Galaxy's Edge, you have to know what it is. Otherwise, you're in the weeds. And I think we'll get into it later. But no, to answer your question, it was not something that we went there with like a specific itinerary in mind. It was actually my brother who suggested it. And it was a pleasant like coincidence where I'm like, oh, like if there was a place I was to go to at Disney Springs, I'm glad this is the place that like you decided on. But no, it was I thought it was worth it. It wasn't expensive, of course, but nothing that broke the bank. It was definitely within the budget of things I had in mind. But no, I was not disappointed. And that kind of redeemed how lackluster the glorified gift shop was. I do want to say before moving on from the Disney Springs portion of all this, there was another Star Wars themed gift shop on the west end of Disney Springs. And this became kind of like a reoccurring theme throughout the whole trip. Was it had some of the same merchandise from where I came from the previous place, but also I would say like almost 75% different merchandise. And I'm not just talking about like theming wise, but like from this specific gift shop, the second one, I actually bought a Boba Fett t-shirt. It had nothing to do with the book of Boba Fett. It was 100% original trilogy inspired Boba Fett. But this specific t-shirt, I didn't see anywhere else throughout the rest of my trip. And so that became, again, a major theme where like every single store had very specific Star Wars merchandise in it. And maybe about 15% of it to 25 was stuff you could find at other locales throughout the resort.
I think that was all very different pre-pandemic because they started moving out a lot of the stuff they wanted to keep park exclusive to those shops and the websites just when they couldn't get enough people like moving through the park. So I think there was probably a little more curation involved in the individual shops like beforehand if you had experienced Galaxy's Edge in that brief window pre-pandemic. I can't attest to any of this because like there's really only one specific piece of merchandise that I have been tracking for the last 2 years. That when I eventually got there, I was kind of genuinely shocked that it wasn't there in any capacity. But we'll get to that in due time. But no, Chris, it's possible. It's possible, but there's a lot of stuff. Like I said, none of this. Like I said, there was pretty much every. I can't. There's not even a single piece of merchandise that was at every single shop. Really, the only thing that I would say was even semi-ubiquitous was some Book of Boba Fett t-shirts. There was about 2 shirts, one with the logo, and then there was a hoodie that was meant to resemble Boba Fett's armor and jetpack. That was almost everywhere. And a lot of people bought that hoodie. I saw that hoodie a lot. The second piece of merchandise that nothing to do with Boba Fett, but I saw a lot of. If anybody's a Disney theme park fan, you know what this type of sweatshirt is called. It's a sweatshirt, but like it has like this weird sort of like, oh God, what's it called when you have the football, Letterman jacket? Is that what it's called? Like in football terms, the Letterman jacket. Thank you.
Are you talking about where it's like leather sort of, but it has like the felt feely?
No leather, but like it has like the equivalent of like the like a giant name on the back of it.
Yeah, I guess close enough. I'm just,
but it's something that like if you're a Disney theme parks fan, you definitely, if Gideon's listening, he definitely knows what I'm talking about.
I'm sure Ellie's probably wearing one today for all I know. She's wearing some Stitch thing that I was like, oh, do you need help getting across the street, old ma'am? And let's just say she can swing that pocketbook pretty hard.
I have to say, like the Stitch merchandise, oh boy, there was like I would say if any particular IP at these theme parks, that is like a top 3. Like there is so much Stitch plush, so much Stitch merchandise. That thing is still I would say that thing's probably carrying the water in a way that, oh God, like no other 2000s Disney IP can right now. But no, so like I said, like again, some like at the second like Star Wars like gift shop on the west side of Disney Springs, they had one cool Beyond the Boba Fett t-shirt that I bought that was like I said, like there was oh God, I don't even know how to describe it. It was a hoodie in the same like vein as I described, not hoodie, in the same sort of like sweater style as I just brought up. And on the back, it said Skywalker Academy, but the colors and design of it were like Anakin's Clone Wars armor with like that blue, red, and like weirdly off gray, like color scheme. And I'm like, oh, this is neat. And like, I didn't buy it though, but like I kept seeing a couple people wearing it throughout Disney Springs. And I'm like, if I see that like at the park tomorrow, I will definitely buy it. Never saw it again after Disney Springs, nowhere. So I'm like, that's weird to think you have like exclusive merchandise at Disney Springs, but not in Galaxy's Edge or Hollywood Studios. I definitely thought I would have seen it like in the gift shop area post Star Tours. No. Again, the merchandise and the just eclectic, weirdly like it's here, it's there, it's nowhere nature of it all was probably the most baffling aspect of all this. So with that being said, any other questions about the Indiana Jones bar or Disney Springs in total?
Did it have a cast of a Yeti footprint?
Rule out because I wasn't looking
Somewhere in the bar.
because unfortunately I'm the only person on this call who does not have a webcam that is operational. I will sit there, post a picture in our group chat of the couple pictures I took of the Jock Lindsay's hangar bar. It's possible his portrait is in the bar, oddly enough, but again, I did not pick up on any of that if it was there.
I'm sure there's a video breaking it down, but like there's got to be like it's got to be loaded up with like indie trilogy Easter eggs. Like the Yeti cast is labeled Abner Ravenwood, and it shows up in the Himalayas bar in the first movie. But I'm sure there's stuff like that. I don't doubt it.
I don't doubt it at all. Like I said, I remember even once like years ago seeing Pablo Hidalgo like tweet about it. And he's like, this is like the first like Disney theme park thing we ever got involved with. And we love the fact that we got to be so kind of like off the reservation when it came with Lucasfilm IP. And like, we really had a lot of like room to kind of stretch our creative legs. So while Chris looked at the picture I put like in the group chat, the name of the drink I got, the green drink, was called the Reggie's Revenge, which is Florida Cane Orlando Orange Vodka, Midori Melon Liqueur, white cranberry juice, and fresh lime juice. And for a $15 cocktail, it was neat. It came in a nice glass, which I wish I could have bought. That will definitely play into more of the later stories. But yeah, it was neat. Like it tasted, like I said, the food, like I said, was it all overpriced? Of course, but I had fun. So it gets a pass from me.
It didn't have anything to do, no Indiana Jones title cards or anything like that in there, did they?
I think if you scrutinized it, like I said, with a magnifying glass, you'd find Indiana Jones stuff in there, but there was nothing from just like a broad stance.
Well,
that would lead you to believe that was indie related.
The picture Zach sent me has a party of people dining inside a giant fridge. So that's an indie reference.
That's not a fridge. It's like a submersible container.
Yeah, I'm messing.
That's around. A battle station.
Oh, Zenger, you monster, you. But yeah, no, Disney Springs. Like one thing I will say that like back in the day, as a like somebody who again like spent so much time at Disney Springs as a kid because like it didn't require theme park admission. Getting in there now is like you could just park and walk in. Like it was almost a glorified like outlet mall in that respect. Now they have 3 giant parking garages that are some of the most like unesthetically designed things I've ever seen. And on top of that, all the traffic is channeled through like one glorified metal detector. So basically you're taking like hundreds of people that are trying to get into this thing like every couple of minutes, and everybody gets bottlenecked. And like again, I get it, it's a security thing, but it is very disillusioning. It's robbing the Disney magic. I get it, it's something they feel they have to do for copious reasons, but it was very jarring, like on a psychological level, relative to what I was used to 20 years ago with downtown Disney. I don't know what's happened since then. Some of the YouTube coverage I've watched, it seems like there was some bad problems with that when it was downtown Disney back in like 2008, 2009. something clearly happens, you don't install that sort of stuff unless it's absolutely necessary. But yeah, it was peculiar because I thought you had to pay for parking there, and one of the very few instances where Disney did not nickel and dime you. I guess they figure between all the shops and stuff, you're taking out your wallet enough. But yeah, Disney Springs, it's relative to what it was like when I was a kid, and maybe that's just nostalgia tainting my brain. A little underwhelming because back in the day, that was always kind of like the haven for like if you ever wanted anything Disney merchandise related. You could sit there, drop hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in there, and just walking through it as somebody who was ready to spend money. All I walked out with was like a single T-shirt, and it was like, okay, like I'm like my wallet's happy, but as a Star Wars fan, I kind of expected a lot more.
Now, did you notice any when you went to these two shops? Did you notice any like of the contemporary Hasbro stuff showing up?
Outside of what I already seen on Instagram, absolutely insane amount of Black Series archive Princess Leia's from A New Hope. And then a little, like to one degree less, an insane amount of Black Series Return of the Jedi Landos, and only a handful, maybe I saw half a dozen Black Series Aura Sings. Other than that, action figure wise, practically no merchandise, except for the Sandcrawler, which there was maybe a half a dozen of those at that one spot on East Disney Springs.
Okay, so I guess like I don't know, I'm dying here, man. I really got like I gotta. What's the experience like going into the park? Like, were you triggered by being tracked the whole time with your robot bracelet? And what is it like?
Okay.
Tell me about the threshold.
Hold on, baby bird. I'll feed you about Hollywood Studios Day, because that day was a trip for so many reasons. That day alone is gonna be a lifetime of memories, just as a Disney theme park fan, never mind a Star Wars fan. So basically, like in all the research I'd done, from the unofficial guide to internet research. From what I deliberately booked a stay at the Disney Dolphin. I spent hours on Google Maps trying to figure out what was the closest park to Hollywood Studios, what was the most efficient way. Because again, my girlfriend, Rachel, knew the sole goal of the Hollywood Studios Disney part of this vacation was I wanted to ride Rise of the Resistance. That was the literal baseline for success. If I rode that ride, didn't matter what else happened that day, I would be happy. So again, I stayed at Disney Dolphin. Any theme park fan can tell you that is literally a boat ride or a 20-minute walk from the Hollywood Studios gate. But what happened was that morning, obviously, we woke up at like 5:30 in the morning. The park opens officially at 9, but if you stay on site, you get in 30 minutes earlier. But I had been told, read, watched that a lot of times they open the park much earlier. So that morning when we woke up at 5, and I woke up at 5, she didn't wake up until 5:30. I checked in my Disney Experiences app because at that point I already, prior to this, had my reservations at Savi's lightsaber experience. But that morning, Oga's Cantina opened up as a reservation at 9:20. And I'm like, okay, like if we're going to do this, I'm not just doing this for myself. I'm doing this for the podcast. Like, book the reservation at 9:20. I'm like, if the park opens at 8:30, if we're one of the first people to ride Rise of the Resistance, shouldn't be a problem, because everything I read told me if you don't get on Rise of the Resistance first thing in the morning, you're going to devote at least a quarter of your stay waiting online just to get into this thing. So I'm like, okay, cool. So her and I leave the hotel at around 7 a.m. and figuring, okay, like we'll get there, I don't know, around 7:30. So we get to the front, like the absolute gates of the park around, 7:25. And as we're walking, we see the Skyliner is running, the buses are running. And from everything I'd researched, it said that Disney transportation doesn't start until about an hour before the park opens. So basically 8 a.m. Well, by 7:15, everything was guns a-blazing. Every form of transportation was running. So I'm like, okay, clearly there's going to be people ahead of us. So we walk, again, really nice walk. That morning wasn't that bad. It was about like 55. So with a jacket and pants, it was manageable. Get to the front gate of the park. What happened was because I purchased everything, and what I was told by the cast member that I spoke to after I waited online on the phone for 4 hours was that, because I want everything being done through my phone. So if I made any reservations for dining, a Genie Plus for an attraction, I wanted going through my phone so I could scan it and Rachel didn't have to worry. We get to the front gate. My thing works for the ticket. They're like, we don't have a ticket for her. And I'm like I said, like my blood pressure's rising. And I'm just like, it's here. I take my phone's already out. Here's the thing for her. Well, she has to download the app. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, and again, with all due respect, it was the cast member that was helping us, quote unquote, was someone whose first language wasn't English. And like, well, she has to download the app. So we have to sit there. She downloads the app, logs in. Of course, she doesn't remember her password, have to go through the entire thing. She logs in, doesn't work. And I keep telling them, I'm like, she has nothing to do with this. I wasn't using a tone. I said, hey, I understand things happen, but like everything goes through me. I have the ticket on my phone. She has nothing. Well, yeah, but she has to do it. And again, anybody who knows me knows, I'm like, no, you are wrong. I understand more about your job than you do. I've spent hours of my life devoted to understanding this. So one thing I've got to give Disney credit for was they have a bunch of cast members there who are clearly like levels 2 through 4 of IT support with iPads that can pretty much fix anything on the spot. So this cast member, again, God bless her, she waves somebody over. He comes over and literally within, I'm not kidding, 10 seconds fixes the problem. He issues Rachel a physical like ticket / credit card or whatever you want to call it these days. And it solved all the problems. So I'm like, okay. So by this time it's around, 7:55. We go straight for Rise of the Resistance because it's the only ride that's open this time of the morning. It's the only ride that's eligible for early hours. Go straight there. Get on the queue. We're walking all throughout the queue. It's all this rock, like faux rock formatures and all this. And it's really cool. Like you sit there, have like all the further you go into the queue, you have like gun cabinets with all different Star Wars blasters, with the flight suits, the helmets, like even like all the different helmets, whether it be for humans, for Abegnos, like it was really cool. And then out of nowhere, like Rachel says like, oh, like they're diverting us. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. I'm like, oh, not to say I wasn't paying attention to her, but I was soaking in the ambiance. And so next thing I know, like I see a cast member kind of doing the wave motion and we're outside the queue. We're outside the ride. And I'm like, what the hell just happened? Like we were like in the bowels of the queue. What just happened? And as we're walking out, like a bunch of people like in front behind us are like, so we're getting the lightning lanes for this, right? They're like, nope. Everyone's just like, so what happened? Technical difficulties, the ride's down indefinitely. And I'm just like,
that sounds familiar.
Oh, ain't that the truth? And so like we're all sitting outside the attraction and I'm just like, oh God, I'm like, this is the whole point for staying on site. This is the reason why that like I paid not a lot of money for a hotel room on site because it is the off season, but I'm like, this was the point of all this. And obviously every minute that goes by is like closer to, because I had the appointment, quote unquote, for Oga's Cantina at 9:20. And they want you to check in for that at least 15 minutes in advance. And I'm just like, I'm looking at my watch and like at this time it's like 8:15. And I'm not kidding you. They literally had every single cast member that was assigned to Rise of the Resistance doing a police barricade in front of the queue. Like you're talking, I wish I had taken a picture of this. At least 8 cast members, like almost standing like arm's length in front of the entrance. And while this is all happening, there's 3 other cast members, 2 gentlemen that easily were in their 60s and 1 woman who had to be maybe in her, like if she, at her absolute oldest, early 40s, all on their actual phones, just constantly talking to people. And the whole time, like about every 10 minutes, someone would get on like, oh God, I don't know what it's called, but it's like where you have like the little speaker piece, like around, like on a belt around your waist and you talk into it and it's there for addressing.
Voice amplifier.
Thank you, Zenger. Zenger going back to his broadcast history.
Actually, funny enough, I use those in my current job too.
Really?
Yeah.
So while
I need to explain, or I was about to say
you can explain the technical logistics of all this if you'd like.
A voice amplifier. It's just something if you're in a group of people, instead of having a megaphone, it's like a step down from a megaphone. If that makes any sense.
Megaphones are too political these days, you know?
Yes. I would say it's less obnoxious than a megaphone.
Yeah.
So every 10 minutes they get on this thing and they're like, the ride's closed indefinitely. We recommend that like you go to other experiences right now, which is a joke because like
there isn't any.
There isn't anything open right now. I would imagine maybe some of the shops are being kind of rushed open so they could alleviate some of the crowds. But the whole time while this is happening, again, Rachel's not, like I said, like I've lived in this Disney theme park world. I know how important it is to get into these things. And she's just kind of like we should go somewhere else. Like, calm down. Don't be obnoxious. Don't like start butting into people. And I'm like, I'm not going to be obnoxious, but like, I also paid money to be here. So like, we're sitting there and the whole time I'm kind of looking at her and like, again, it's 8:30, 8:40. And I'm like, well, at what point? Because again, the ride because of this ride, how elaborate it is, it's going to take at least 20 minutes to ride. So I kind of look at her and I'm like, well, at what time do we give up on this and like go to the like the cantina? And she's like 9 o'clock. If we're not in the queue for this thing at like 9 o'clock, then we have to like leave. And I'm like, okay. And the whole time while this is happening, you have like the barricade of cast members. And the question became basically because I'm not kidding you, a horde of people amassed outside the barricade. So there really was no like, where were they going to start letting people in? Because like basically it was just like a group of people. Like you're talking like at least 200 people. And there would be a literal stampede if they just backed away. And so around, I'm not kidding, around 47, literally like we're talking at least 10 feet away from the normal entrance to the queue, they open up a little sideline. They say, okay, come on through. And we were the literal 6th and 7th people to get on the ride that morning. So we make it through the queue. We're back online and we're going through the whole thing. And pretty much like to get into it, like it's neat. It's a lot of fun. Like there's like very much, it's like I posted some clips in the Facebook group. Anything you've seen on YouTube, it's that experience. Just going through like this again, it's actually a more fun queue with a decent enough ride element to it. Like there's the part where you have the resistance ushering you onto the transport shuttle, and you have a animatronic of Beck, who is a Mon Calamari individual. And there's actually a 9-Num animatronic, which I didn't know he was an animatronic. I thought he was a screen, but he's actually an animatronic that's flying this transport. That's a lot of fun. Without getting into spoilers of this ride, you get brought into a tractor beam and you're on a first order Star Destroyer. That part was a little underwhelming for 2 reasons. First, they wanted to get people into this attraction so fast, you really didn't have any time to wait because we were the first group that morning. So I would imagine, Chris, even you've seen it, like that part where you have like the 24 Stormtroopers just kind of standing there in formation outside the viewport.
Right. So those are robots, right? So
they're static. They're static. I don't think. Okay. I'm pretty sure they don't move.
Okay. Well, I just I saw some photos of that hangar and it looks pretty cool. But obviously, to do a hangar at the scale that it's visible in the movies, it's still smaller than that. So like, there's a TIE fighter like. I don't, and you're saying you got rushed through there, but there's a TIE fighter like on the side of the wall.
It's there.
Did it look undersized to you?
Yes.
Did it look good? Yeah,
it's again, it comes down to as a Star Wars nerd, it feels undersized. To a kid, I imagine a kid would lose their mind over this especially if they're a Star Wars fan. As an adult, it blends in nicely. Again, I'm looking at this with the scrutiny of a nerd who spent way too many man hours thinking about all of this. Not just as a Star Wars fan, but as a Disney theme parks nerd. But no, it's the cast member. One thing I gotta say about all of this across the board, the cast members are phenomenal. They really are in every aspect. They sell the illusion, for better or worse, which we'll definitely get into later in the trip. Like I told, worst. Chris, I gave Chris a small hint. I maybe had the greatest experience ever on Star Tours. I might have encountered real aliens on Star Tours, but we'll get to that in due time. No, so going from like once you're in the Star Destroyer hangar, you get ushered through, and they put you basically into interrogation, quarantine, so to speak, and that's a lot of fun. There's some nice pauses in the ride, like how they do things, like that make you kind of question whether what's happening is part of the script or if it's something that's weirdly outside the norm. There's some weird lulls that play into making this a much more authentic experience. And like one specific portion of this is they put you into an interrogation cell, and there's a stormtrooper on a screen. It's a 2D effect. It's not a animatronic, and he's just kind of sitting there watching you. And it goes on for about, I'd say, as long as it needs to go on for them to get the ride vehicle ready. And you don't know what's happening because he's just kind of looking at you. He's looking to his side, like you can tell, like he's yawning at one point. And then next thing you know, one thing I gotta say about Rise of the Resistance, it gives General Hux the respect and due that weirdly he didn't get in the Rise of Skywalker. Who would have thought that in the theme park ride, General Hux gets more to do than in the final film of the sequel trilogy?
Well, I think the reason for that's pretty obvious. Like they were working with Last Jedi information when they put that ride together.
Oh, definitely. Oh, yes and no. Like the more I think about Rise of the Resistance relative to Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, I don't know what they were working with. Because again, without getting into Colin Trevorrow stuff and whatnot, I don't know how much information they even had.
Did you go over to Colin Trevorrow's spaceship and pray in front of it?
That was there. I never saw Kylo Ren come out of it. But that was there. But like that ship is literally at the furthermost corner of Hollywood, not just Galaxy's Edge, but of Hollywood Studios. That thing is literally in a corner. You really have to kind of almost seek it out to find it. It's neat looking, it's cute, but it's not anything to get excited about. It really isn't. But no, getting back to Rise of the Resistance, again, Hux and Kylo Ren show up. Kylo Ren threatens you. Like I've said numerous times on the podcast, it is episode 7 Kylo Ren. You never see Adam Driver's face for obvious reasons. And then like Kylo Ren and Hux get pulled away, and you kind of just sit in this dark room for a couple seconds. And then next thing you know, there's this real, probably again, the devil's in the details, but this is what sells me as a not just a Star Wars fan, but a Disney theme parks geek. You can tell there's somebody literally slicing through the wall with, again, Chris, I don't know what the term is, the thing they use to seal the doors, but they're using it to actually cut through a wall in the Star Destroyer, and it's resistance people, and how the wall intentionally breaks apart is so convincing because there's actually like, oh God, melting pieces, almost as if it were like a lightsaber. It's stupid, but it's a really neat thing that like, just like, as somebody who loves that sort of thing, like I was tickled by. So they open the wall, and they say, quick, like we're there. Like you can hear John Boyega over the speaker say, like, this is a rescue mission. We're here to rescue you. And you get in the ride vehicle. As Chris has probably seen, there's toys of it with the little black droid, and you sit there and do that. You get into that, and it's trackless, so it just kind of speeds around on its own. Really neat. It's neat. I don't think it's great, but it's really neat. There's a John Boyega Stormtrooper animatronic, which I think Chris is gonna love. It's John Boyega with the Rise of Skywalker haircut. Not the episode 7 and 8. It's the John Boyega with like the hair. His hair has grown out clearly.
You're saying there's a John Boyega robot that's not wearing a Stormtrooper helmet?
Yes. And you see him without the helmet on a couple screens, but it's he's the only character in this other than Kylo Ren and General Hux that gets an animatronic. And it's episode 9. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's episode 9 Finn.
And is this a convincing John Boyega robot?
You see it. You're in a ride vehicle when you see it. So you're moving really fast. But yeah, like I had my glasses on the whole time, and at no point I didn't buy into it. You kind of have to know that he's there because the ride vehicle is always spinning. But he's cool. No, it's convincing. Like, it was neat. I'm like, cool. It's like, it's again, is a huge fan of the Rise of Skywalker. That day I wore my Rise of Skywalker hoodie. Like I said, I ate it up. But this is the most interesting aspect. So, like, again, Chris has abstained from watching any ride footage. I've watched Rise of the Resistance footage at least a dozen times in the last couple of years. So I knew all the plot beats. So you go through all the stuff, whether it be the AT-AT walker, seeing Hux and Kylo Ren on the bridge of the Star Destroyer. Again, the fact that they made a General Hux animatronic that probably cost more than I'll ever make in my lifetime blows me away. Like, absolutely blows me away that that's a thing that actually exists. But the thing that, like I told Chris, I did not expect was for the kind of third act of Rise of the Resistance, there's a Kylo Ren animatronic that shows up to confront you. And we didn't get that. We get a part with a screen where Kylo Ren is either in the TIE Whisperer or Silencer. At this point, as a Star Wars fan, I don't know which is which is from Last Jedi, which is from Rise of Skywalker. He shows up in the TIE Fighter and is taunting you. And like the whole time, my brain's like, wait, this isn't what happens here. And then literally as the ride's coming to its end, I'm leaning over to Rachel. I'm like, we got the B mode of the attraction. And she's just like, what? What does that mean? And kind of like, it's funny, I was texting Chris while I was in line for Smugglers Run. And I'm like, yeah, we got the B mode of Rise of the Resistance, which clearly means that when they were having technical difficulties in the morning, it was the fact that the second Kylo Ren animatronic wasn't working. And so I did some research today, and apparently that is the B mode for the attraction. There are a couple of videos on YouTube. They're kind of few and far in between because this is the version of the ride they really don't want you to see. It's the fail-safe. So in a way, I felt even more, excited because I got to see a version of the ride that at least 75% of guests will never see.
Is the alternative technically interesting? Like, does it look like you're watching, like, does it feel like a substitute in the sense that you're watching a screen rather than seeing a Kylo Ren robot, or is it like
100%.
Well done? Okay.
100%. Oh no, it's 100% a screen because I did watch. There's some YouTube videos they're out there. I will depending on when this episode goes up, I'll put it in the Facebook group. We'll probably link to it in the show notes. It's noticeable, but I think if you didn't know there was an animatronic that was supposed to be there, you don't feel like you're missing. I guess somebody who knew the animatronic was supposed to be there, I didn't feel cheated. I'm like, this is neat. I'm seeing something I wasn't supposed to. Like, most people aren't supposed to see. So no, like I at that point, it's such a minute thing. It's no big deal. But it's just fascinating that clearly telegraphs what technical difficulty they were having that morning. It was clearly an animatronic issue, which is something I will get into later with my Smugglers Run experience.
I wonder how many of those they have. Like, is it just Kylo Ren that breaks down all the time, or is there a TV section?
Get there. He wasn't. I'll put it this way, not to get too far ahead. The Kylo Ren animatronic in the latter half of Rise of the Resistance wasn't the only animatronic that was broken that day.
So, calling back to when Ellie talked about this, how like she was like they were sorted off into engineers and gunners and pilots.
That's Smugglers Run.
Oh, okay, never mind then.
We'll get there, Zenger. We'll get there. What was Ellie's experience? Because Ellie had because for the record, when Ellie went on Rise of the Resistance, that was still when they were doing virtual boarding groups. That has been abolished as of now.
Yeah, because I was like, you didn't get to any part of the story where you were on your phone desperately hammering away at refresh.
Nope, because that's the thing. Because that's the reason why too I decided to switch this from Universal to Disney, was because Disney got rid of the boarding groups. Which in the ZengThis episode, I remember telling Ellie, I'm like, that is a deal breaker for me. Like, I'm not going to spend thousands of dollars at solely the opportunity to roll the dice on getting on something. Yeah. I'm like, I'll wait 3 hours online, but I want to know that there is a guarantee I will get on the ride if I put on the time. And no, they did away with the virtual boarding groups. But the thing I want,
because of people like you.
Yep.
people are like, because I know Ellie said there was a lot of people that would complain about not being able to get there.
It's interesting you bring that up, Zenger, because again, I signed up for Genie Plus, which like I say is a glorified version of Fast Pass from back in the day. We eventually got off the ride at about 9:13, so we had more than enough time to go to Oga's Cantina. But on our way there, I pulled my phone out, got the My Disney Experience app, which lets you book the next ride you want to go on with a return window. Rise of the Resistance is one of 2 rides at Hollywood Studios that doesn't allow you to do that. You have to spend an additional $15 per person to get into the lightning lanes for that, which is the, again, modern equivalent of the Fast Pass lane. I'm not kidding you, by 9:15 that morning, all the lightning lanes at $15 a person were sold out for Rise of the Resistance for the rest of the day. Think about that. So yes, on-site guests can start booking these things at 7 a.m. General park goers can start at 9 a.m. By 9:15, the $15 per person to skip the line was sold out, but technically within 15 minutes of opening.
I completely get it. Like you're there for one day. You're going to be super annoyed if you don't get on the one of 2 rides and in the park. And $15. I'm surprised it's not more expensive.
There you go. So basically what happened was, on our way to Oga's Cantina, I pulled my phone out, wanted to see what I could do next. I wanted to book a return window for Smugglers Run, just to guarantee, because I knew that was going to be a long wait. By 9:15, the earliest return window for Smugglers Run was 7 to 8 p.m.
Oof.
At 9:15 a.m. So that's 10 hours? And what happens is, because of Genie Plus, compared to what Fast Pass was, Fast Pass will let you have up to 3 return windows for any attraction at any given time. With Genie Plus, you can only have 1 attraction booked for a later return window. So I'm like, if I book this like for Smugglers Run at 7 to 8, they're like, pretty much I've wasted it, because I can't do anything else with it until I've ridden Smugglers Run at 7 p.m. And Lord forbid if it breaks down or anything. So I just decided, I booked a Tower of Terror appointment from 10 to 11, and I went on my way to Oga's Cantina.
So I just want to point this out. So all this sold out. Who knows X number of that they have. And I'm having to pay $7.99 a month for Disney Plus. Why is that not just being given out for free? Anyways, sorry.
What do you mean by that? Elaborate, please.
Disney makes money hand over fist. Why should they charge for their freaking video service?
What Zenger's trying to say is that if you're spending $15 to ride a ride, you should at least get a complimentary month of Disney Plus.
Yeah, why not? It's like someone's sitting there and they're like, oh, I'll have this bottled water. I'll pay $5 for the bottled water when they're openly giving away water for free right beside it.
Real quick, Zenger, can I please bring up something? Because Disney has deals with Coca-Cola on every single menu at any of the restaurants, cart stands, whatever. It says Dasani water, $3.50 a bottle, and then right next to it, the life water is $5.50. And every single time I saw that, I literally I did a ha every single time I saw that throughout the day.
Oh, also never ask for Pepsi or Mountain Dew. It is punishable by death.
Guillotine by Mickey.
Yeah. You just get dragged off instantly.
All right. Any questions about anything of Rise of the Resistance related? Chris, Zenger, Joe. Joe, I know you are just so excited to start throwing money at the Walt Disney Resort.
Oh, I am.
I know you have your tickets booked for the inaugural flight of the Galactic Star Cruiser. So before you make your venture to Central Florida, any questions?
Actually, I think this time of year would be the perfect time to go because it's not blazing hot. So probably a good time for me.
You know what's really funny you mentioned about that? Like a couple of days before we flew out down there, I have family down there, and they're like, "Yeah, you picked a really bad time to fly down here." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "It's gonna be 65." And like I look at
It's like summertime.
yeah, it's like I look at the thermometer. And it's like, oh, it's a very balmy 2 degrees today. Yeah, 65 is going to be more than manageable relative to a single digit temperature.
Oh, by the way, not to tough guy it, but it's sad at, I mean, right now the current temperature outside is 19 degrees. The high today where I live was 28 degrees. And was I one of those Jags standing outside at one point in shorts and a t-shirt? Well, yeah. And I did get to, aren't you cold? No, I'm perfectly fine in this, as I was shivering to death.
Okay. All right. So I just want to know, like, theoretically, if you asked someone who is like not looking at it from a Star Wars lore centric perspective, Rise of the Resistance is like the crown jewel, best achievement of this whole theme park. Do you feel like it lives up to that from a technical standpoint to everything else you experienced that day?
Personally, no. As a Star Wars, okay, I'm gonna respond to that comment on 3 different levels. As a general just park goer, maybe, probably yes. Like I described it to Rachel, I said this attraction's considered a super headliner attraction, which means it's not just a marquee attraction for that specific park. It's a marquee attraction for the entire resort. On that level, as a normie, filthy casual, yeah, I think it gets across the goal line. As a Star Wars fan, no, I do not think it lives up to the hype. And I don't mean that. I don't mean to sound that as a Debbie Downer. I just don't think it lives up to that hype. It's fun. It's a lot of fun, but it is not the second coming of like, wow, like this blew my mind.
Okay.
I don't think, but as a Disney theme parks fan, no, I think this is a definition of a lackluster attraction as a Disney theme park fan. It's a step in the right direction, considering like relative to a lot of stuff they've done over the last 10 years, where they've kind of like leaned on their laurels. But no, I'll get into it in a moment with my experience on the Tower of Terror, which I'd never ridden before in my life until this last visit. No, this is, again, it's a step in the right direction, but I don't think this is the culmination of theme park engineering. Go ahead, Joe.
I have one question for you. Now you're looking at it from the lens of as adult Zack. Now go back to 10-year-old Zack. If you went through that ride, would you be hooked on Star Wars?
I think the movie.
That's the thing. All right. I don't think it's meant for hardcore.
I agree with you, and I don't. I'll get some of what you said. I want to answer at the end of all this because I think I want to kind of like summarize my opinion on all of this. Not just Rise of the Resistance, because there is a bunch more here. There's Olga's Cantina, there's Smugglers Run, there's Savi's Workshop. There's a lot more to go with. I think this is a more comprehensive package. I don't think you can separate any of this as a singular experience. You either buy into it or you don't as an overall thing. Again, Disney did this as a Harry Potter killer relative to Universal Orlando. And that's how I graded it. That's how I kind of graded everything regarding Galaxy's Edge is this going to be a Harry Potter killer? And I'm going to save my final judgment on that for the end of this episode. To answer your question, Joe, is somebody who is I love Arnold Schwarzenegger. I know he's literally insane. Like, I think in the last couple hours, he almost ran somebody over. I think he did run somebody over, like in a Prius. My first introduction to Arnold Schwarzenegger and the Terminator franchise was with Terminator 2 3D Battle Across Time. That day, that ride fundamentally altered my life, just how I view the world and what kind of rabbit hole it led me down. So Joe, if you have no experience with Star Wars and you ride Rise of the Resistance, does it have the potential as like for a child to get really hooked into this? Maybe. I hope so. As a Star Wars fan, I would love any opportunity for more diehards to be accepted into the fandom. Yet at the same time, I think this ride is so dense whether it be through the pre-show, the whole thing with Beck and Nine Nub on the transport ship. There's even a point where I even forgot to mention that you go from, oh God, there's a pre-show with Ray and BB-8. There's a BB-8 animatronic that's really convincing. Then you go to Nine Nub and Beck. Then you sit there like there's an entire part even before that with Poe Dameron's black leader X-Wing. Then you have the First Order component. Like, I think this is a very, very dense ride that doesn't know what its audience is. And I think, once again, that will be my overall thoughts about Galaxy's Edge to kind of tip my hand a little bit. I think Galaxy's Edge doesn't know what it wants to be. I think it was a shotgun approach. I don't think they had one specific creative lead. Any Disney theme park fan can tell you about how important it is to have somebody like that, whether it be Tom Fitzgerald, Joe Rohde, Tony Baxter. It's so important to have one specific creative lead that is honing the focus of the experience. And Galaxy's Edge feels like it's just shotgun approach. We're going to throw as much at the wall as we can, hope it sticks. And I don't think that in Galaxy's Edge, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, but it definitely feels less cohesive relative to a certain boy who lived across the street.
I do want to point out that the accident with Schwarzenegger, he was not driving a car. He was just running and ran over a Prius.
Zenger, did you look into that story at all? Because wasn't he driving like some like giant vehicle?
Yes, he is driving.
He literally just drove through a Prius.
No, he drove on top of a Prius.
I saw a picture.
No, I just wanted to make the joke.
Like, I saw a picture of his car on top of the Prius, and they were both standing outside in front of it. Yeah.
I just wanted to make the joke of it, he wasn't involved, as in he didn't need a car to wreck a Prius, but no, his giant GMC. I could not see if I can get it's some GMC something.
Come on,
he
had to do something after GMC discontinued Hummers 10 years ago.
I saw a good meme of it where it was the picture of them all standing in front of the accident, and the text was just I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle. It's good.
So, Joe, did I answer your question?
Not really, but I'll wait until the end.
I also have a question.
Fair enough. Yes, Zenger, please.
You're telling me the animatronic for the ball robot was convincing as the ball robot.
Yes, BB-8. They sold the illusion of BB-8 to me as he literally wobbled around roughly 2 square feet of space, about 8 feet above my head.
They sold you the illusion of the robot being a robot by having a robot portray the Oh my gosh, this is so deep.
We're going deeper. We have to go deep.
This is Inception levels of
womp womp.
Yeah, exactly.
It's somebody who has to edit now, Chris. Womp womp.
Zanger, you don't even realize how deep it is, because that BB-8 was made by partially made by fans of Star Wars who started making fan-made R2-D2s in the first place. So it's so Inception, you don't even realize it.
Dang. Not only am I having to pay for Disney Plus, but Disney themselves are outsourcing the construction of their animatronics to fans. Next, you're going to tell me that most of the Stormtroopers are just people in costumes that are doing it for the fun of it. Oh, crap.
That happened at least once, yes.
At least once, probably more times than we could count, right, Chris?
Well, they made such a big PR deal out of the Stormtroopers that were used in the final battle of Mandalorian season 1, being a crew of 501st guys, that I think if it had happened in a big context since then, they would have tried to sort of make another media event out of it.
Oh God, at some point we'll definitely have to do a deep dive on the weird sort of dueling marketing campaigns of the Mandalorian relative to the Rise of Skywalker. At some point we'll have to sit there, double back to that, because that was just what if a unique time in Star Wars fandom where we got a shotgun approach of a new TV series new movie and new video game all at once. Something that probably will never happen again in our lifetime as Star Wars fans.
And of course, who could forget the first live action premiere of Force healing right before it occurs again in the movie. Amazing.
Which is something that now we have to realize that was unintentional on their part. There's no way they planned that. There's no, considering how like is more like even the last couple of days, a story came out about how like Lucasfilm is now intentionally kind of just dumping non-Star Wars IP because they don't want the hassle of like redirecting resources away from it. Like it has to be that like they just kind of back again. It's that Rise of Skywalker unintentional brilliance.
Well, yeah, I mean, the reason it couldn't have been planned is because the plot for The Rise of Skywalker was made up the weekend prior to the film's release.
What can we piece together to make a movie?
Once again, my favorite Star Wars film because it is unintentionally brilliant. J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio unintentionally backed into profound Star Warsness.
Yeah, I mean, once in a while, an insane person wins the lottery. I hear you. With JJ,
is it the equivalent of a broken clock is right twice a day? Isn't that what The Rise of Skywalker is for me?
It's something more rare than that. Twice a day is like pretty successful.
It's almost like the Cincinnati Bengals going to the AFC Championship game. Something that hasn't happened since 1988.
Have we stated for the record what Zenger's Zoom background is?
I keep on leaning further and further back, so more of it's available to you.
And more so Zenger just blends into it.
I'm hoping one day too. No, the background I have right now has changed from the instead of it being the bridge of a Star Destroyer, it is a Bengals tiger striped background because I'm proud of them. They did something good. We'll see what happens in a week.
They're great.
Thank you.
Like Tony the Tiger.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
All right, Zach, where are we going to next? Lightsaber building, the Falcon.
After this, so by the time we got out of Rise of the Resistance, it was around 9:13 on our way to Oga's Cantina at 9:20. It should be stated that like anything at Galaxy's Edge outside of Rise of the Resistance and Smugglers Run, the Millennium Falcon ride, is literally a hole in the wall. So unless you have a ride map or you have My Disney Experiences map pulled up on your phone, you will not be able to find any of this because like numerous times Rachel and I literally had to like kind of like double back to figure out where we were because everything is a hole in the wall. And also everything is in like Orbresh. That's like a combination of the Star Wars language and like English letters. So like it's a weird like amalgamation. When it came to Oga's Cantina, it's like, oh God, between the Colin Trevorrow First Order transport and like a blue milk stand. So we kind of went there. We saw like a bunch of people. So we kind of left them like, hi. So like we have reservations at 9:20. And they're like, oh, like what's your last name? We gave them all the information. And like, oh yeah, we'll call you when we're ready. At this point, it's like 9:18. So like maybe 60 seconds went by and they're like, Weber, party of two. Like, okay. So you walk into the bar. It has like I think this is the part that, again, as a Star Wars fan, it's the small details that you're going to absolutely eat up. It has the door. It has like the classic Star Wars door that just like swooshes open and close. And I'm just like, this is neat. I'm like, as a Star Wars fan, it can't help but kind of put a excrement grin on your face. And that like excrement eating grin on your face, so to speak, because the door just opens perfectly. You're like, oh, this is neat. I'm walking into the cantina. You see DJ Rex up on his little podium. Like I have at least 3 different videos on my phone of him just kind of like playing different music as he kind of just bops to the music. Walked into the bar. In my case, all they had was room at the bar, which was great. I'm like, no, like this is what I want. I want to sit at the bar. Rachel, who's only seen episodes 1 through 5 once, the whole time while we're sitting there, I am just literally quoting dialogue from the cantina on New Hope. I'm like, I have the death sentence on 12 systems. And she's like, what? And I'm like, you better watch yourself. And she's just like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I'm a wanted man. And she's like, this doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, you'll be dead. And so I'm just confusing her more and more. And I'm like, it's like this young one's not worth your trouble. Now let me get you something.
God,
so I'm just doing
perfection.
that. I'm just like, I'm butchering the lines in real time. I'm soaking in the ambiance, because probably Oga's Cantina is the best part of Galaxy's Edge, because it actually feels like you are in Star Wars.
This makes me so happy to hear you say that. Like my cousin went there not long after it opened. He was sending me pictures from inside there. You can't stress. I can't wait to check it out. You can't stress how much better it looks than the Galactic Star Cruiser Cantina from the video. Like it looks like there's so much detail. There's like an aquarium with like the wart frog that is sitting outside Jabba's palace.
Yes.
So like, did you take a good look at this frog? Is it moving? What's going on?
I want you to know that frog, I'm an embarrassment as a Star Wars fan. His species name is one thing I've never like really memorized. I know his exact moment. I can play it out in my head right now from Return of the Jedi. He is so much fun just because like we're where we were positioned. I put it in the group chat right now. Again, a lot of this we're going to try to put in the Facebook group. He's a lot of fun. He doesn't move, unfortunately. He's above the bar. But you can actually drink. One of the cocktails is actually quote unquote made from his like something he's like exuding from his body.
Okay, well that so the picture you just sent me, there's a couple inches of water at the bottom of this aquarium, and it appears to be filled with frog eggs.
Yep.
Which might be what's in the drink.
So here, bear with me for a second, because like obviously this entire thing has to play into my experience. So like we walk in, it's like, oh god, it's 9:25 in the morning, and we're kind of sitting there. And Rachel doesn't want to drink. I'm like, I'm at goddamn Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. I got to ride Rise of the Resistance. I'm literally the 6th person to ride the ride that morning. I feel like I could take on the whole empire myself. I'm like, I want a carbon freeze drink, which is one of the ones that has like the dry ice in the bottom of the glass. It was an alcoholic beverage, so I was consuming alcohol at like 9:30 in the morning.
And it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Glug, 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 glug.
Exactly, Zenger. I'm so glad you said that, because I said that many times that morning. For those of you at home, the best in fizz, according to the menu, is Bacardi Superior Rum, Yuzu Puree, pomegranate juice, white cranberry juice, and a cloud swirl. Cloud swirl is clearly the dry ice. That's a part of it. But this is the fun part of it, because Rachel didn't want to drink. She ordered an Oga's Obsession. So when the bartender came back with my drink, the Carbon Freeze, he provided Rachel with an Oga's Obsession. So she looks at this, and the bartender brings over essentially a petri dish with a spoon. And he looks at her and goes, "Are you sure I can't get you anything to drink?" And she goes, "No." And how he describes it to her in that moment, he goes, "Just make sure to chew very, very thoroughly, because if you don't, it'll lay eggs in your stomach." And then he walks away. And as a non-Star Wars fan, she looks at me and she goes, "What did he just say?" And I'm like, "I think he told you to be careful of what you're eating." And she looks at me, again, 100% authentically, and goes, "Is this like real frog's eggs?" And I kind of just shrugged, playing into it. She looked, obviously, because the menu was like a QR code that you looked up on your phone. She looks into it and she knows it's safe. But this is kind of the brilliance of this, is that Oga's Obsession, as listed in the menu, is Minute Maid Premium Lemonade, cotton candy flavor, blueberry popping pearls with a bursting dried fruit mixture. It was essentially like little mini Jello balls in Jello with Pop Rocks and like a poof of cotton candy. So when you bit into it with the Pop Rocks, it felt like something was moving in your mouth. But between the actual libation in front of you with the cast members bartender selling it to you, it felt like you were eating something unique, because even the little balls of Jello had like little liquid in them, almost like a mini fruit gusher. It sold the illusion. And I'm just like, this is so much fun. And while this is happening, you have that like frog creature from Return of the Jedi above you, and whatever he's excreting is going into like this little vat where they're pulling drinks from constantly. You have DJ Rex playing like this weird Star Wars music, and the lighting is perfect. The bar counter, the bar top is perfectly lit. And I'm like, this is Star Wars. Like, as much as I made fun of it being Ooga Booga's Cantina, and to this day, like again, give me a moment. I'll get into Ooga as a character in Galaxy's Edge. But even though it's not Wars Cantina from A New Hope, this is everything you could possibly want from a Star Wars like experience, because they only let in like with Jock Lindsay's Hangar Bar, there was maybe, I don't know, 12 to 16 tables in the actual bar at any given time. Oga's is probably in the ballpark of 24, maybe 36, depending on capacity. But at that moment, because you can't just, breeze through it as a guest at Disney. It is an exclusive experience. And out of everything I did that day, specific to Star Wars, I am so thrilled that I got to do Oga's Cantina, because that was probably the only moment of the entire day, maybe not the only, probably one of two moments throughout the entire day where I actually felt I was living the Star Wars experience in a way that, as a Star Wars fan now for, over 20 years, I've never experienced before.
Got a question about that, Zach. Did you at one point feel at any time that you were being rushed out of that cantina?
No. They do. I will say that they do tell you when they're seating you, quote unquote, that this is a 45-minute experience. They do tell you that, so they can. After that, they could escort you out. There's just as somebody who's at the theme parks, we got in there around 9:25, and by 9:45 we were ready to leave. They are so quick, because after I ordered the carbon freeze, I know I sent Zenger a text message, because they had two other specialty drinks that come with novelty cups. One of them was a drink with a porg. That one I wasn't too interested in based on what it was, but the other drink I actually did buy. It was called the Yub Nub. It is a Malibu pineapple rum, Sailor Jerry spiced rum, citrus juices, and passion fruit served in a souvenir Endor mug. I saw one of these from like kind of like across the bar, and it's basically like a glorified tiki cup, but the mug is actually like, it has like etchings, and they're actually really cool, of the Battle of Endor, where you have the shield bunker, the Ewoks, the AT-ST being commandeered, the shield like satellite dish, and even the space battle with the Star Destroyers, the Mon Calamari, capital ships, and the TIE fighters. It is a $45 drink, because you do get to keep the mug with it. But even that, like, we were maybe in there for 20 minutes tops. But at no point did I feel rushed. The bartenders buy into it, because even the people next to us, like they were barely 21 years old, and they got carded, and like they ordered one of the drinks, and like how the bartenders were selling it, they're like, you sure you want this? Like, this is the sort of stuff we used to grease pod racers with. And they don't miss a beat. And then like the guy, obviously they pour the drink for the guy, and he tastes it, and he's like, yeah, it's pretty good. And he's like, man, it's the first human we've heard say that in like 20 rotations. And just like, I'm just like, they said rotations. I'm just like, oh, and Rachel's just giving me this weird sort of just look, and I'm just like, oh God, they said the right word. And I'm like, again, like that was like that's everything you want as a Star Wars fan. Like that's all you want, is that sort of just like minute detail that like any other person would go right past. But as a Star Wars fan, you're just like this is it. Like, this is living the dream. It's not like flying in a Star Destroyer. It's not being like in the like sitting in front of the chessboard on the Millennium Falcon. It's just sitting at the bar, hearing the bartender just use such a small detail to sell the illusion.
I like it.
One of the things you said that was something that I was thinking, like, just as a regular insane person, this was something I was thinking about a lot when I knew this park was being built. Just the fact that, like you mentioned, there was a lot of Arubesh, and I wasn't sure about this myself, but I thought the idea of making the park like in canon would never work, just because surely for navigational and safety reasons, there has to be plenty of English all over the whole park.
Okay. As somebody who did a copious amount of research in Orbresh a little over a year ago for a tattoo, what they've done is they've melded the language, like symbol wise, with the English language and in English lettering. So they've done it so it resembles that font style, but you can read any map or anything within the park.
Nice, because
it's
like
not
actual,
jarring.
yeah, like the Arubesh is just a lot of the letters and numbers are identifiable as English. Like once you spend a long enough time looking at it, as some of us have. So if they sort of found a 50-50 point between the two, it would probably look pretty authentic.
Yeah, no, at no point, like as a Star Wars fan, like I want known that like with somebody who has a tattoo with many Orbresh letters, people look at it in real life, not like theme park stuff, and they're like, "Why do you have Russian on your leg?" And I'm just like, no, it's Star Wars nonsense. I'm like, the lightsabers don't give it away. And
how about red exit signs? Were there a lot of those?
Like safety, like OSHA,
like classic, like you must have according to the law. Exit signs.
Those are like 100% like English exit signs. There's no Orbresh exit signs unless they are themed to be that way. No, like again, there's certain things they can't play with.
The word you're thinking of is Cyrillic.
Thank you, Zenger. Zenger did his research this morning. He read Merriam-Webster's before heading to the gym.
No, man, I do that at the gym. You gotta lift and read, man. Lift and read.
You got to exercise both the brain and the muscle.
And the body.
Oh God. But yeah, no, Olga's Cantina. I got the mug. Like I walked out of there, even like walking out of there, I'll put it in the
wait. So you have that Porg mug?
No, I didn't get the Porg mug. I got the Endor mug.
Oh.
The Porg mug was the people next to me got that. And like I asked the bartender, I'm like, hey, like, can I have a picture of that? And he's like, sure. And he kind of left it on the bar top as I took a picture of it a couple times.
Okay.
I did text Zenger in real time, like as I was sitting in front of the bar.
Which by the way, I can confirm it was before 10 Eastern time when that was texted me. So
I will say one thing though about like the alcohol content of these beverages. All I had that morning was an apple for breakfast, but like I had 2 drinks and I felt those drinks walking from Olga's Cantina to Tower of Terror on the other side of the park. I felt those drinks. Like I had a really nice time walking from one corner of Hollywood Studios to the other. Like it was a nice walk at like 9:50 in the morning.
Okay, so I fortunately did get to experience Tower of Terror not that long ago. It feels like your brain's floating in your skull cavity. It's a good time. But like moving on back to like where did you go in Galaxy's Edge after Tower of Terror, or was there something amazing there that you have to tell us about?
No, I just real quick. I'll be very brief about my non-Star Wars theme park experience.
Did you find my hat I lost when I was there in the 90s?
What kind of hat was it, Zack?
I don't know, but I know I lost it.
Oh, boy.
I assume it was sitting there somewhere. Maybe it was my cousin. Anyways, there was a lost hat. Did you find it?
Did you find a hat in Disney? There was a hat found, but we'll get into that later with Indiana Jones.
Oh man, awesome.
But no, Tower of Terror, just real quick. As somebody who grew up in Disney, like again, I was born in 92. spent so much time in those parks in 2002 and 2003. I never got the ride tower tear. It was always one of those things that, oh God, was in the skyline, but because of my nephew at the time being a scaredy cat and never got to ride that, rode it for the first time this trip. And probably my favorite Disney ride ever. Like, it might be the fact that you get to see somebody doing a Rod Serling impersonation. I don't know. Had the time of my life. It was the only ride I rode twice that day. Should tell you all you need to know. Yeah, moving on. So after we did that, I booked a lightning lane for Rock and Roller Coaster, which wasn't from 12:30 until 1:30. And at this time, I think it was like maybe 10:30 in the morning. So Rachel and I, once again, if you know your geography of Hollywood studios, headed all the way back over to ride Smugglers Run, which had a projected wait time of 70 minutes. So I figured, okay, like 2 hours, no problem at all. We get on the standby line for Smugglers Run, and Smugglers Run might actually have the worst queue in the history of Disney theme parks. We waited online for roughly 2 hours, even though the projected wait time was 70 minutes, which I don't mind. Things happen. I don't care. But when I say the worst queue ever, once you move into the building, beyond the 1-to-1 scale Millennium Falcon, there is literally nothing to look at. All it is a giant like engine, Star Wars engine, that occasionally lights up every 5 minutes. And you have these disembodied voices of people working for like Hondo Onaka Industries, who make these weird, dumb, like The Office level quips, where it'll be like, Century to Main Tech 1, what is your status? And it's like, Main Tech 1, I'm sorry, Century to Main Tech, nothing has happened. It's just these weird sort of non sequiturs that happen. And while this weird, inane, sophomoric dialogue is happening, all through disembodied voices of characters you never heard before, this giant engine in the queue just lights up and goes vroom, 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 and then just dies. And that becomes the joke for roughly 2 hours, is that this engine is clearly on its last leg or dead, and they're trying to fix it. You don't know who these disembodied voices are. Occasionally, once every 20 to 25 minutes, you'll hear Hondo's voice. He doesn't really do anything. He just kind of comments on what's happening, and that's it.
So did that dialogue reach a loop while you were in line?
No, it did not. I don't think we heard the same thing. I don't think we heard the same thing twice, but to be fair, the dialogue only kind of picks up every 5 to 10 minutes.
Well, I would have been, it'd be appalling if it did reach a loop, because, they know where they're looking at an hour to 2 hour wait time. And how long does it take to script a couple hours of inane comments?
Yeah, exactly. So like, well, again, we waited online for I don't think it was exactly 2 hours, maybe 110 minutes, but very much over what the wait time was, which is very peculiar, because from my understanding of Disney wait times, like when they post that outside the ride, they always do a thing of overestimating the wait, and then under in real life, or when it comes to the actual time, undervaluing it or underestimating it. So they'll usually, in my experience from back in the day, was if something had an hour wait, you only waited about 40 minutes. It's that notion of, oh God, basically not making you wait as long as you think you have to be. And so we waited about 2 hours, which was expected, disappointing, but what we expected. Behind us in line was grandma and grandpa, grandma was very, very irate about having to just wait online. Talk to them a little bit just because we were there for so long. Once we got onto the ride, I have to say, when they assigned us roles, Rachel and I both got assigned to pilot, and I almost did like a Wile E. Coyote and jumped through the ceiling. I was so excited to be assigned to pilot. Like, I was just like, oh
well, I mean, you almost wonder
static.
You almost wonder if they're watching and they're like, between this group of 4 to 6 people, if we give the elderly couple pilot and co-pilot, will the riot occur?
I don't know if it's that, because like how they were, because again, like there's 6 people per cabin on the Millennium Falcon. worked out that way. Again, it's one of those things where like technically you have a 33% chance of being selected for that. And again, we were a party of two because of Rachel and I don't know. I don't know. Is it possible, Chris? But I don't think the cast members are looking at it that way, because their job is to just get as many people into these things as fast as possible. I will say that in that little like portion where you wait to board into the cockpit, where you are in the living space, the Millennium Falcon with the chess table, we were there for a grand total of 30 seconds. Because like I had just enough time to sit at the chess table. And by the time we kind of sat there, like Rachel took my picture of that, it was told, get back in line, get back in line, get back in line. That like there literally was almost no, like you didn't have time to explore.
So who is the, describe the in-universe cast member that's loitering in the Millennium Falcon?
There's like about two of them. Because how it works, we've talked about this a couple of times now, is that there's a carousel system for the actual cockpit of Millennium Falcon. The living space with the chess table is essentially a glorified queue, much like Rise of the Resistance when it comes to the transport bringing you into space, the First Order Star Destroyer. It's basically, it's making the line part of the experience, which I applaud them for. It's something that they've been doing now for almost 50 years, whether it be Pirates of the Caribbean or Haunted Mansion. It's nothing novel to Galaxy's Edge. But how the cast member is explained is they're part of Onaka Shipping Industries, or whatever the correct term is in Star Wars lore. They work for Honda.
Okay.
But one thing I will say before you get to that point of the Millennium Falcon cockpit, from watching ride footage of this on YouTube, there is supposed to be a Hondo animatronic. But when I went on Tuesday the 18th, there was no Hondo. He was solely that day a video screen character.
So he's supposed to be like in the garage before you get into the deeper part of the line, right? Yes.
And we didn't get that. He was solely on a video screen. And while that was happening, there's clearly a point where the spotlight like is focused on something, and there was nothing there for it to focus on. So I don't know what was happening that day, but my conjecture is between the Kylo Ren animatronic and the Hondo animatronic not being present for both of these rides, clearly something was happening that day at the resort where animatronics, they either didn't have the part or the technician wasn't there, because in both instances there was no animatronic.
That's like a little disappointing. It does make you wonder though. Like, I mean, of course, like I've seen the video of the Hondo. They've put him in some stuff on Disney Plus just to it's definitely an impressive achievement. But I think the ones that are actually supposed to look like humans are a little crazier. But it does make you wonder, having two broke down in the same day. Like, do they do scheduled maintenance like during park open hours? Like that'd be weird. And then on top of that, like what frequency? I wonder if there's like a season pass guy who could tell you there must be like some lunatic who goes to this who's like every day for a week, and like they could tell you like on average how many days is it down.
I don't know. Like I did not do the research on this. If I had to guess, and again this is my own speculation, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe there's certain parts when it comes to these things that are they just can't get. It's one of those things where I think, because that's the thing too. We were talking about this earlier. I think it was Zenger. Disney doesn't make any of these things in-house anymore. They outsource all of this. Like they do not, like back in the day, like whether it be Carousel of Progress, like any of your animatronic rides, they used to make these things in-house. Now they design them in-house, but when it comes to the fabrication and kind of manifesting them in reality, that's all outsourced to third-party companies. Like, yes, they design all of it, so the copyright's there, so this third-party company can never make duplications of them. But when it comes to the fabrication, it's a third-party company vendor who supplies the parts. So it's always possible that if something breaks and they run out of the parts for it, guess what? You get like much like what happened with Kylo Ren on Rise of the Resistance. You get the screens version of the ride. And that's what happened. Like Hondo was there. He was talking at us. He was just talking to us through a screen. And maybe that makes it more convincing in one regard, because clearly this was filmed with a real actor in makeup. Once again, I don't think I was deprived in the experience at all, at least when it came to the pre-show. But it was just, as somebody who knew what was supposed to be there, you can't help but feel like, oh, clearly things aren't running 100% as they would like it to be.
Well, luckily, the core experience of Smugglers Run is probably something that barely breaks down, as it's essentially a very basic video game, right? So, like, I want you to get there, but I guess and because you haven't outright said it, I'm guessing you didn't really have a moment when you're going through the Falcon interior or walking around the outside of it during the queue. Like is it doing anything for you, this one-to-one Falcon in the interior?
I will say about the one-to-one Falcon is neat because as you're outside, it is doing things. Part of the soundtrack of the Smugglers Run queue is playing outside, so you can hear things like, well, again, even though while you're waiting online for this ride, you have all these disembodied voices, you don't know who they are, like chattering is annoying. Outside, it's neat because it is playing into everything that's happening. They'll be doing diagnostic text on the Falcon. Think very similarly to what Han and Chewie are doing with it on Hoth in Echo Base. There'll be things happening. There'll be smoke blowing off of it. Like there are things happening. They are giving it some level of diagnostic while it's at Black Spire Outpost. While Rachel and I were waiting online, Ray and Chewie, slip of the tongue there, were underneath it, just like waving, taking pictures with people. That was a lot of fun. Like seeing Ray and Chewie in the cast member they had as Ray looks very similar to her. One thing I gotta say, we saw it throughout our day there. We saw two different Ray actresses, and I have to say, this is something very, very, oh God, I don't even know what to call it. Just a unique observation. Both Ray cast members were clearly of Asian descent. I don't know what that has to say about trying to find a facsimile for Daisy Ridley, but you could very easily tell that was who they were hiring. Again, not good or bad, just a unique observation. As in, you could just tell what somebody, again, Daisy Ridley is a very unique looking individual. And that was, I guess, the closest they could find for Central Florida. It was just very interesting.
It's an impossible task, really, especially when you have a real like screen accurate Chewbacca there, like recasting a human actor as I almost don't think they should even do it when they have Daisy Ridley footage in the rides. I personally, I would skip the human actors.
I will say that again, I saw the Ray walk around character twice. The first time was under the Millennium Falcon. Second time was there was this very specific part in Galaxy's Edge above speeders, like a bunch of land speeders, where it wasn't just simply Ray and Chewbacca. It was also a couple stormtroopers kind of doing quote unquote crowd control. And again, it's convincing. It's a convincing illusion. Again, as a Star Wars nerd dweeb, can you see through it? Yes. But if you're willing to allow that like suspension of disbelief, yeah, like I bought it was Ray's at Galaxy's Edge. Like, I'm sorry, Black Spire Outpost. I bought it. Hook, line, sinker.
Well, you're the kind of guy who probably thinks Alden Ehrenreich is Han Solo, but that's neither here nor there. But I'm more wondering, like did the way you sort of, and I'm not sure if you had a chance to walk up to the Falcon like earlier in the day, like before you went on Rise of the Resistance, is just looking at it doing anything for you?
No. As a Star Wars, like I said, I never bought into that thing as like it's neat. Like they built a 1-to-1 Millennium Falcon. I can appreciate it on that level. But to me, that sort of thing didn't like stroke my nostalgia or Star Wars part of like my brain. Olga's Cantina did more in that regard than anything else. Olga's Cantina did more to sell me of this is Star Wars than anything else Galaxy's Edge like related.
So the actual ride itself, Smugglers
Okay,
Run.
we'll get to that. We'll get to that. So, okay, Rachel and I are pilots. I'm the left pilot, aka the Han pilot. She's the Chewbacca pilot. And the rest of the cabin was the two grandma and grandpa behind us. And behind them was they were a couple that had to be like in their late 30s, early 40s. So my job was to steer the Falcon left and right. Rachel's was up and down. We did a really bad job piloting it because at the end, we like had a very low score, and like the cast members playing into the whole shtick were like, "Oh man, like Chewie's not gonna be too happy when he sees what you did to the Falcon." So clearly, we didn't do that good of a job. But one thing I will say that like steering it left to right a couple times, like as somebody who's watched at least an hour's worth of ride footage of this thing over the last 2 years, I like would tug it right and left, and nothing would happen at the ride screen. Nothing happened. I can't speak for Rachel because Rachel had literally no experience whatsoever with this. And I even asked her, I'm like, were the flight controls inverted? And she's like, yeah, because like as I would pull down, it would go up. If I pushed up, it would go down. So I don't know. I also know the people that we had as the engineers and gunners were not doing their job. Because at numerous times in the ride footage, like on the ride, it would be like, gunners, fire your missiles. And there was a delay. Like the people we were working with or playing with, wherever you want to call it, riding with, were not attuned to what this was. I think they were expecting a much more passive experience as opposed to a engaged one. And
Did you say that your interface for the lateral controls appeared to be doing nothing at all?
It felt that way. Because a couple of times like things were happening on screen. And like any video game, Zenger can tell you, there are moments where your controls literally do nothing in a video game and the game doesn't communicate that to you. Maybe that was one of those instances because a couple times if you watch Smugglers Run footage on YouTube, you're supposed to like, there's like these weird sort of almost like glowy square boxes that are supposed to be almost like a target for you to fly through, kind of like an aiming zone almost. So like, so you know where you're supposed to be in the ride. I was aiming for those and it wasn't doing anything. So I don't know if it was something where the game is just, I keep saying game, if the ride is doing its own thing and you're not supposed to be in charge of it, or my controls are maybe not functioning properly, or maybe I was doing something wrong. I don't know. Because clearly like I was it was one of those things where like once the ride ended, I was like, this has potential to be the greatest ride or the greatest thing to ever happen to a Star Wars fan. I feel like if I was given, it felt like a video game, and I think Zenger can appreciate this as the game, probably the most gamer of all of us on this call. If I was allowed unrestricted access to this for hours, this might be the greatest thing to ever happen to a Star Wars fan. As somebody who played Rogue Squadron on the N64, as somebody who loves the space combat and Battlefronts, the contemporary Battlefronts, somebody who's, oh God, complained about the fact that you can't have control over things, I think this has that potential. I think you just need, it's almost like, I remember maybe a year plus ago, somebody described Smugglers Run to me as, if you're that kid in high school who loves group projects and taking unilateral control of it, this is the experience for you. Pardon the motorcycle outside my house right now. That's what this feels like. I think if you were to sit there, have yourself and a group of 5 friends, you might have the greatest time of your life. But if you get saddled with a bunch of people who don't care, which as soon as like once the ride was over and we quote unquote landed, I didn't feel disappointed. I was like, yeah, this is fun. This is neat. Like it wasn't that same experience coming out of Olga's, but I was like, yeah, this was fun. This was worth the 2-hour wait. And then grandma and grandpa behind me like said, like in the most, oh God, Zenger will love this reference, like Patty and Selma reference possible. They're like, this was worth the wait. And I'm just like, go away. I'm like, you're the reason why we can't have nice things. I'm like, and they said that in front of the cast members. And I'm just like, no, this was fun. Like, just because you expected to literally just sit on your fat butt and let the thing just kind of just wash over you. I'm like, no. I'm like, this was neat. It was a lot of fun. Is it the greatest thing ever? No. But I'm like, this was fun. I'm like, if it wasn't a 2-hour wait, will I have 100% waited online again for it? Absolutely. Rachel and I tried to get another thing on it, and we couldn't that day. But no, it's something that like I was not disappointed. Like, based on the ride footage, I expected to hate this. I will say that if I did get saddled with gunner or engineer, I might have hated it. But if you do get the pilot seat, it's so funny that, like, because it was so cold that day, I wish I had packed my Alden Ehrenreich Han Solo jacket. If I would have had that jacket while piloting the Millennium Falcon, I might have had like the happiest aneurysm of my life.
What I'm confused. Oh, go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
I can't believe that Zach told the old people to get off his lawn.
Well, Zach should have some compassion, because they probably nearly expired in the line, and then they don't know what a Star Wars is, and they got the lame 2 seats where you don't get to do anything interesting. So I'm not surprised. And you also have to sort of wrap your head around the fact that Zach had to wait 50 minutes over projected waiting time, and then he's also said that his controls didn't appear to be working, and it's a glowing review. So that tells me that it must be a really engaging experience.
Being behind this thing, I will say, much like Oga's Cantina, even though it's a facsimile of the Millennium Falcon cockpit, the idea of it like coming off the ground, and even again, it's the illusion of having control over it. It's kind of mind-blowing as a Star Wars fan. Like, again, it's the pilot seat. I can't attest to anything else, because even like when we originally got assigned to seats, Rachel was in the Han Solo seat, and I said, like, move. I'm like, I pushed her into the Chewie seat. I don't know. If I wasn't in the Han Solo seat, I can't imagine sharing the same opinion. Because like, if you had some 6-year-old or some grandpa like flying it, I would be like maybe on the verge of like literally chucking somebody through the cockpit, like windshield. But being in the Han Solo seat on the Millennium Falcon, and again, I can't put enough quotation marks around the word of flying the Millennium Falcon. But if you can get in the pilot seat, I can't imagine you being disappointed. And I will say, just as a nice little kind of flourish, is that because we did a bad job of flying the Falcon, coming off of it, all the lights were like blinking and flashing in a very, manner of something clearly went wrong, as if the Falcon was damaged to some capacity. And I'm just like, again, I'm like, this is neat. This is fun. I'm like, this is cool. I'm like, again, pilot seat, yes. Anything else with people you don't know, this is very easily like a 2 out of 5 attraction, I feel.
I can't believe they let you fly with having 2 drinks.
To be fair, I did already ride a Tower of Terror, so I think they felt I clearly blew under the breathalyzer, or the Star Wars breathalyzer, whatever that may be.
Well, here's the other thing. If you had worn your Aaron Aldenwright jacket, I'm wondering if they would have been like, sir, you can't sit in that seat. You just can't.
But Zenger, my friend Needles taught me a trick until he died.
Doing this trick.
They would sit there and say, you have to stay in the queue.
You have to stay in this queue until you take the jacket off.
I'm guessing Zach just referenced a line from Solo, but it completely blew past me.
It's typically a Back to the Future Part 3 reference in a Star Wars movie. That is the most baffling part of that reference.
Well, okay. Here's the funny thing. I've seen the movie and I had to think if that was in there or not. And I'm like, well, Zach said it, so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Am I the only Star Wars fan that when I think of the Millennium, like the definitive Millennium Falcon sequence in Star Wars, I think of the Kessel Run from Solo, a Star Wars story?
Yes, you're the only person by far.
There's like 50 others you could choose from. It's sitting there doing nothing. It at Hoth doing nothing. The Lego one sitting on a shelf over there is more definitive than anything from that movie.
Listen, like
the one behind Chris right now is
the one that I literally wrote that's sitting behind Chris right now.
That one's
is
better.
More definitive.
Yeah. But you know, I think literally, so like it's total side tangent, but I think the whole, and I'm unfortunately reliving it now, but the whole experience with the Maw in Solo, like it might be the only Star Wars thing that I've successfully pushed out of my brain where I don't think about it too much.
Really? I love that. I gotta think about, like, probably, like, I'm not kidding you. And as a fellow gym person, Zenger can appreciate this. But anytime, like, I'm doing cardio and like I put something on my phone to kind of just like zone out and just kind of like get into what I'm doing, it's the Kessel Run from Solo and like the weird, like, oh God, have we figured out what that creature is yet? Is it a Purgle? Like I eat that up. The whole thing, even getting to it's Savarine, and you hear Alden Ehrenreich, and he's like, Savarine refinement base, we are coming in, and I'm just like, I eat that up, man. Like again, to this day, I still adore Solo. I still think that's, oh God, my third favorite Disney Star Wars film. Maybe tied with Rogue One.
Okay,
maybe tied with Rogue One.
As long as you phrase it your third favorite Disney Star Wars film, we're fine.
We all know what my least favorite Star Wars film is, like Disney era. We all that still hasn't changed.
It's The Last Jedi. I know it is.
Oh,
we know which one it is, Zach. Yeah. But you know, by such slim margins, like whatever, it's neither here nor there. But so I want to let you move on from Smugglers Run. Just one last question about that. This is something that I think is really hard to get a grasp of from videos. I've seen a tiny bit of video from Smugglers Run, and so like I think visually, it's just when it comes to like projection and screen technology, like it's really hard to create the illusion that you're literally looking at like actual objects in front of you rather than a projection. Like, you know, like how deep is the black? Like how sharp does the image look? Like did you believe there was stuff in front of you? Like what's the quality of the screen like?
I'm maybe a bad person to ask that too, because clearly I was focusing on every part of this, so I couldn't really ever like 100% dissolve into the illusion. No, it feels like a video game. It does feel like a video game, but a convincing video game. Well, I will say that it's not Star Tours.
This is
not Star Tours.
This is the first time I heard it has like Star Fox training rings that you're supposed to fly through. So that does sound like a pretty classic video game.
It does. It will. The thing about Smugglers Run is it is a video game. Like it's weird. It's something that like Disney doesn't typically do, because most of its video game rides, like Buzz Lightyear, Space Ranger Spin, Toy Story Midway Mania, anything that has like a video game element to it is clearly labeled as that. It's weird. This ride. When I look
at it, it's just seems super comparable, especially when you're saying that the interactive element is sort of like whatever effect you have, it's buffered to the point where you're not going to ruin everyone else's day. It does seem very much like Star Tours or how the Back to the Future ride used to be, where it's a lot of theming and cameos on the queue, and then it's more of a motion ride by the end of the day.
It's weird. Smugglers Run is because again we're slowly getting into like the Star Tours element of my time there. It's not as convincing as Star Tours. 100%. It's not as convincing. It's a weird blend. I would say almost weirdly enough, it's a blend of motion simulator in video game. And like I said, I played a nice portion of Star Wars Squadrons. I kind of, not that I gave up on Squadrons, but I didn't have the time to really devote to figuring out everything about that game. And when I started playing it, I didn't have the PlayStation, whatever. Singer, what's the PlayStation? What's the Xbox Live equivalent to PlayStation? PlayStation Plus?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't even have that yet when I started playing Squadrons. It's again, I don't know. It's a dumbed down video game combined with a motion simulator. Even at one point in the ride, you get the coaxium. Weirdly enough, like going back to Solo, the ride takes place almost exclusively on Corellia, and you're stealing coaxium, which is a very Solo plot point. And there's a point where the floor drops out, and you're supposed to feel that motion, that simulation of falling. Which, if you've ever ridden Star Tours, any really simulator ride, you know every simulator tries to emulate that experience of a free fall. Star Tours does a phenomenal job at it. This, it happens, and it didn't feel that authentic. It felt like an emulation of it as opposed to a, oh boy, like here's that G-force of free falling.
Although the core machine is getting a little old at this point, it's like Star Tours is built out of an actual flight simulator. Whereas this, I don't think there's probably not as much raising and lowering going on. I don't recall any behind the scenes footage showing whether there is or isn't, but it's probably designed to be a little more streamlined, especially considering they have like 5 or 6 of those cockpits like on a big wheel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, like I said, a little disappointing because like I said, I knew all the plot points once again of this, and I knew that moment was coming. And when it didn't happen, or I didn't feel that sort of visceral nature, I'm a little disappointed. But no, I again, my review on Smugglers Run is it's a lot of fun. It's the closest you'll ever feel in real life to piloting the Millennium Falcon. Just make sure that you get the pilot seat. If I cannot fathom being the engineers or gunners. To me, that is a literal just waste of time. If I got either one of those roles, I think I would have been massively, massively disappointed. But being in Han Solo's seat on the Millennium Falcon with the throttle, with the hyperspace, the light speed like throttle, that is everything you could ever. Like, as a kid who grew up playing the PC game where you had the giant plastic thing that like you latched onto the keyboard. With like, oh God, Chris can tell you, with like the elastic band that hooked around the keyboard, and you had to like smash the thing, even though you had all these different buttons, but in reality, all it controlled was maybe 8 different keys on the keyboard. As a kid who grew up with that post Phantom Menace, the idea of even being behind the Millennium Falcon cockpit with like a weird lateral joystick that didn't do much, it's a dream come true. It really is. And it's disappointing to say, but I think Disney knows. For a Star Wars fan, that's all it takes. It's the illusion as opposed to maximizing the illusion.
If I remember correctly, I think Ellie and our daughter got the engineering spots for that, and they were completely happy and enjoyed doing that. So I guess it just depends on the individual.
I do want it known that like I was again, as somebody who's watched copious amounts of ride footage of this, I like maybe I'm to blame here, but I was predisposed to be like, if I did not get pilot, I was going to be frustrated. So, like I said, to each their own. But as a Star Wars fan, considering there's only 4 seats in the cockpit Millennium Falcon, 2 of which literally have nothing to do other than just sit there. I again, part of me also just speculates that if there was just 4 seats in the cockpit and they had 2 other people somewhere being the gunners, like actually sitting like in the things that like Luke and Han sit in A New Hope, I think they could very easily diminish the wait times if they had that being its own thing as well.
They're so screen accurate that the problem with that is you simply can't force someone to climb a ladder. So it's just off the table right away. But I'm glad that you liked it. And I'm surprised that you're as positive about this whole experience as you have been so far.
No, it's okay. We have the Star Tours story, which is the greatest moment of the day because it just was inexplicable for so many reasons. So after we do Star Tours, we go once again walk to the other side of the park. We get on Rock and Roller Coaster. Unfortunately, as we were waiting in line for that, I explained to Rachel if anybody knows their theme park history, knows the obscene gesture that Steven Tyler makes in the pre-show for that ride that Disney edited out sometime in the last 5 years. I explained that to Rachel. And then she proceeded to make said obscene gesture during the ride camera like photo take.
And you guys are escorted out.
I was surprised they didn't do that because we actually have the picture of her making this obscene gesture on camera, which again I cannot wrap my head around. But anyway, though, so we do that. We do Rock and Roller Coaster. We get lunch, and then basically was just kind of wander around after that. We went through the shops at Galaxy's Edge. There's the marketplace. We went through there, and they have like about maybe 4, maybe 5 shops. Neat. Like you have the animal stables there. I posted a couple pictures in the Knights of Vader Facebook group. You have a sleeping loth cat with a pork plush, which is like animated. And the little loth cat is sleeping, his tail's wagging. I thought that was cute as hell. I ate that up. There's a little baby Sarlacc, which became weirdly prescient considering this episode of the Mandalorian of the Book of Boba Fett. Considering that the anatomy of a Sarlacc became like a plot point. That was a lot of fun. This is where clearly Chris's lizard monkey came from, was this area of Galaxy's Edge. Again, going back to the one item that I really kind of wish I would have bought, they had not just a regular colored loth cat, they had a blue loth cat plush that hisses, which I really now in retrospect regret not buying. But they had some really cool merchandise, really like stuff that's outside the bounds for Star Wars fans. They had like all these like again, in quotation marks, handmade toys, whether it be like Stormtrooper dolls, Kylo Ren dolls, a bunch of stuff. That was really neat. Kind of just looked at it, walked through. Again, really felt like a Star Wars bazaar, so to speak. Very similar to like the marketplace, what was it, Navarro in Mandalorian season 1. Felt very similar to that. Really neat. Not my alley, but cool nonetheless. After we did that, we went and we did I want to say the Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular show. Like I said, Rachel is a huge Indiana Jones fan. She was expecting something more like a ride or more like an actual like a theater performance, something like Beauty and the Beast or Fantasmic. When she saw that, it was more of a deconstruction of what it, again, Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular is the only original ride from the park's opening in 1989. So that was cool. One thing I just want to note, that at one point in the ride there, or not right, in the show, a truck intentionally flips upside down and a woman in the crowd let out a blood-curdling scream that was 100% genuine. And the actual performers looked up to the audience because it was that convincing. In an auditorium of thousands of people, the actual actors looked up because it was that convincing of somebody responding to what was happening in front of them. Like I said, neither here nor there, but it was neat.
A truck that's flipped over every day since 1989.
Numerous times every day since 1989. And this woman let out a blood-curdling scream. 10 out of 10, got my money's worth out of that. I will say that because Rachel's only goal that day was to get an Indiana Jones shirt and hat, she inexplicably somehow picked the one store in the entire park that actually still had Indiana Jones merchandise. And she got her shirt and hat. Go figure. She walked away happier merchandise-wise than I did that day. But after that, it was around, I want to say 4:00, and the Sabi's workshop appointment wasn't until 6:45. So we had about 2.5 hours to kind of just do what we wanted, didn't have anything going on. So we went on Star Tours. Went on Star Tours once, and we got the Phantom Menace experience. We got the pod race along with the Naboo Gunga City. And that was neat. I've never been on Star Tours 2.0. The adventure continues. The last time I ever rode Star Tours was in 2007, where it was still Captain Rex. And it was the weird amalgamation of attack on the Death Star with the footage from Return of the Jedi, not footage, but just emulation of Return of the Jedi and A New Hope sequences. And then I looked at her because the wait for Star Tours was essentially a walk-on. And so I said, want to do it again? And she was like, sure, that was a lot of fun. And so I was like, okay, that was the most enthusiasm she'd showed all day outside of Indiana Jones. So this is where the part of the story where it gets a lot of fun. So we get to the main entrance, and I'm not making this up, there's a gentleman. If he's 85 years old, he was young. This is, like I said, I'm not, as somebody who grew up with a father that was born in 1927, I know what it's like to be around an elderly individual. This gentleman had to be at least in his mid-80s, but that wasn't the kicker. He was dressed in a shirt, tie, and jacket. And I'm like,
so formal, very
nice.
Formal.
Back to what Disney was back 50 years ago, where people actually dressed up in jacket and ties. But this isn't the
people
most.
Also did that when they flew on planes. It was an experience. Zach,
Well,
you were on the plane. Oh, I wore,
a Rise of Skywalker hoodie.
The obvious.
There you go.
The obvious thing here is that was the fashion at the time when the park opened, and he was there that week, so he's just sticking to it.
But he
hasn't left.
But he never left. Mentally or physically is the real question there. But that's not the most interesting part of the story. So he was with a female companion, a woman that had to be in her mid to late 40s. And what she had, because of the current world we live in, anytime you went indoors anywhere on Disney, they required a face mask. So as she's walking on the Star Tours with her elderly companion, she had a face mask on, but it was obscure because on top of the face mask, she also had a gaiter. For those of you who don't know what a gaiter is, it's a very sheer piece of fabric. Think of something slightly thicker than silk that kind of just drapes around one's nose. So she had that. So when she was basically walking into the building, they asked her to remove the gaiter and prove that she had a mask on. And she got very, very upset by this. Very upset. And so I'm just like, again, they're just doing Joe also works in an environment where we have to deal with the public. You have to empathize with the individuals whose job it is to police this. It's just like they're just doing their job. They don't want to be doing this. Just let them do their job. Again, whether you agree with it or not, just let them do their job. So she was very irate. Well, while this was happening, we walked through the queue for Star Tours, and for some reason we had to wait online about 20 minutes, which is kind of obscene for Star Tours nowadays, because Star Tours never is a wait. So while we're sitting there, these two kind of goobers ahead of us are just doing their thing. And the whole time I'm just like, please put them on a different ride vehicle than us. Please put them on a different simulator. I don't want these people. Well, little do you know, they sit next to us. They get placed right next to us on Star Tours. Okay. So they sit next to us. And as anyone who's ever ridden Star Tours before knows, the cast member who's in charge of kind of stealing the flight simulator goes through their safety spiel. Please put all belongings like under your seat, lock your seat belt, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of his like 30-second to 1 minute spiel, the cast member goes, and he was a cool cast member. He was really playing into it. Like this wasn't a passive thing to him. He was really playing into what was happening. He goes, and before he's about to like walk out and lock the door, he goes, do you have any questions? So this woman raises her hand, and I'm not making this up. She goes, for flight 495, what is the current destination city? And she was not saying this like in a way to play into the act or saying this ironically. She was like, based on her tone, she was genuinely inquiring as to where this flight was arriving to. And I'm not lying about, I'm not making this up, exaggerating, hyperbolizing. The cast member, for a solid 2 seconds, his brain short-circuited because he stumbled, or he go for a solid 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and then he says, please inquire with the captain about all procedures, and just walked out, locked the door, and the ride began. And like the whole time, Rachel and I are just giggling because we've been sitting next to these people now for at least a half an hour in the ride queue.
What was the flight again?
It's like $4.95, whoever it was, like in the pre-show, like as you're waiting to board the flight simulator, they say of a generic flight number. You hear it every single time. It's nothing unique. And as we got off the ride, Rachel and I kind of just look at each other like, did that really just happen? And I turn around to her and go, I think these were real aliens trying to get home. They were two peas in the pod, man. Like they were trying to get somewhere. And when they ended up back in Central Florida, had to be disappointed.
There's so much that you could glean from just their attire and expressions that I'm not getting to like make you like either they're super committed to Disney role play or they were very confused individuals. I'm just letting you know that when she asked the cast member the question, there wasn't a single ounce of cynicism in it. This was not like a playing into the storytelling at hand. This was somebody who literally, from what I could tell, and I'm not an expert on human, emoting of certain words and stuff, but this did not feel like anyone being ironic or cute or playing at a level above the way they were supposed to. This was the equivalent of getting on a bus and asking, when do we get to this stop? So the thing is, if she would have been wearing like any kind of Star Wars shirt, you can stop wondering.
She was not. She was not wearing any. She had a pair of baggy jeans on and like a I don't know what it was, but like a sweater. That's what it was. This was not a diehard. This did not, from a superficial glance, be a individual that was a diehard. Not from a distance. It did not feel that way. I could be wrong. I can see that. Like I said, I'm not judging one way or the other. Just I'm just recounting the experiences of one individual's behavior on a ride.
Well, it's either that or she's indulging in psychedelics of some kind.
I hope so.
Or she's on a day pass. That's the other thing.
It's that, or they clearly bought into the illusion in a way that only I could ever hope to.
Well, it's just her, because that guy was like 45 when Star Wars came out, so like he's not buying it.
But that was
that therapist.
I'm not gonna lie, Chris. Like that was the I don't think I could have asked for a better Star Tours flight. I do want to say that Rachel and I did ride Star Tours 3 times in total that day. The first experience was basically the Phantom Menace experience. It was the pod race. It was Naboo, Gunga City. This second time with the extraterrestrials that were trying to phone home, we got the first segment was Rise of Skywalker. It was Kef Bir. It was the remains of the submerged second Death Star. And the second component of it was actually The Last Jedi in Crate. It was the Battle of Crate, which was neat. It was neat seeing that. And then later that day, the actual last ride that we rode on at like 8:30 at night, we did Star Tours again, and we got put in the same simulator as we did the second time. And it once again was Kef Bir, submerged second Death Star, and the Battle of Crate again, which is kind of...
That's really weird because I've heard that each of the 3 segments sort of gets shuffled. So you basically won the lottery in a very uninteresting fashion.
We won the lottery in the worst way possible. It was kind of weird. I remember because I told Rachel about like, oh God, like there's so many, like even on YouTube, you can watch YouTube videos where they've done all these different things. And like there's YouTube videos that are over like an hour long, just putting these things in a different order. And somehow and I think what happens is probably in the morning, they probably set the simulator with the same like ride program. And I think there's 6 simulators running in Orlando for that ride. So probably every simulator. And by that time of the night, probably by 8:30, they're probably only running one simulator. Cause there's like, at that time it was a walk on, like literally you walked in the front door. I do want to say, because at that point I did, not to jump too far ahead in the story, I had already built my lightsaber. And as anybody knows, as you walk through the Star Wars queue outside under that like facade at Walker, you can hear the the Ewoks kind of like chiming in over each other and they're chattering. I lit the light. I ignited the lightsaber and I was pretending to like sit there, like ward off the Ewoks. and I didn't know there was a cast member there, and the cast member told me like, "Oh, I didn't know we had any Jedi's on Endor right now." And I'm like, I feel like a jackass right now because I'm literally sitting there like reenacting like a scene from Ewok Hunt in Battlefront 2 as a Disney employee is witnessing all this. So yeah. I think what happens is by the end of the night, by like within an hour of closing, they probably only keep one simulator running because it makes no sense to have 6 of them running if you're only getting like maybe, I don't know, like at most 100 people an hour.
Well, but even so, like I've heard some bold claims from people involved with the park that you could basically ride it like 100 times in a row and not have the same experience. So that it sounds very strange to me that you got that, but it sounds like I didn't realize you hadn't been there since that they refurbished that in 2011. I actually am. I'm very sad that I missed out on the original Star Tours experience, but I had been on this one a few times.
2 things I will say. First, like walking, because obviously before we even get the Rise of the Resistance, we had to like go past the Star Tours queue. They still have the banners up promoting the Rise of Skywalker Exegol segment. Over 2 years later, they still have the banners of like Exegol and like the rows upon rows of Star Destroyers in front of the ride.
This is something that's been talked about a lot, but like if you think of the story of Star Tours, it was literally designed so they could replace the films, and then they just didn't for like 25 years.
Yeah.
And so now to have the most recent clips being a couple years old is really pretty great. And the fact that it sort of randomly cycles, like it's really like now what it was supposed to be in like 1993.
Yeah,
so it's pretty good.
No, I one thing I will say, I think Chris is going to absolutely eat this comment up. Rachel, who is not a Star Wars fan, like once again, not because she dislikes it, but just because she really has no interaction with it beyond me. She said, out of everything we did that day, Star Tours was her favorite ride.
That's awesome. I like, technically speaking, should objects that are beyond the cockpit glass appear stereoscopically closer to you than the cockpit glass? I got some issues with that, but essentially it's a fun ride. So I think they sort of proved the point that the 3D elements like probably not super necessary with the Smugglers Run thing. But I remember thoroughly enjoying it last time I was there, probably 4 years ago.
It's a lot of fun. Like even like the queue for Star Tours between like the C-3PO animatronic, the 1-to-1 scale Starspeeder 1000, the board that has like all this different stuff about destinations where like Alderaan has been voted safest planet in the system, all this stuff. Chris is for those of you at home, Chris is literally LOLing on screen right now. But then even as you make the turn around the corner and you have all these different kind of like different droids that are like baggage porters and they're commenting about their jobs. It's baffling to think that a ride that was conceived of like in 2008 and then like crafted in 2010-11 is infinitely more interesting than the Millennium Falcon ride that they spent 5 years working on.
Well, the queue for Star Tours retains a lot of its original elements. And I think the C-3PO is actually something that was always there. So like there's a little more time and thought put into it than what you're saying, because it's building on an existing structure. Sure.
But the same goes for the Smugglers Run like queue, that like all that information they've had now for 30 years is baked into this. And yet the Smugglers Run queue is literally just like 3 disembodied voices and an engine in the room that just like turns on and off. And yet Star Tours, that, like you said, they designed nearly 30 years ago, is infinitely more engaging and lively than the thing that was designed in the last 5 years with an infinite more amount of resources.
Well, obviously you were in the line an hour longer than you were supposed to be, so you had a really stretched out experience. I think the average Star Wars fan would be more enthralled by looking at the back grills of the Millennium Falcon for 20 minutes. But that's not even the portion of the queue that you spend the most amount of time in. Like that is like overflow.
Like ideally, you are in the building. Ideally. I don't know. I just think that, like, again, there's so much you could do with Smugglers Run's queue. Like, just take a lesson from like, again, put a Ray animatronic, not even a Ray, but have a screen. There's so much you can do, and I just feel like, again, Smugglers Run, even Rise of the Resistance. Rise of Resistance has a lot of fun, like walking throughout the catacombs on like the Batu like rock formation. But weirdly enough, Star Tours just, maybe again, it's a budgetary thing. I don't know. It's just kind of a shame that the 30-year-old ride has a much more engaging queue than the ride made in the last 5 years. Like almost
I don't want to say it, but it's might be emblematic of a broader thing going on. But that I hate to be that guy, but they just don't make. It seems like they just don't make anything like they used to. But I really want you to we're running a little long. We're 2.5 hours in. I want you to get to Savvy's workshop, man, because I know that you had a good time there.
All right, so just to kind of fast forward. Star Tours, because I did eat there too at Docking Bay 7, but that was at the end of the night. So no, getting to Savi's workshop, the lightsaber building experience, got there around 6:25 because they told you to get there at least 20 minutes in advance. Before even leaving for Florida, I knew there was a controversy in the Disney theme park community over the workshop, the Savi's workshop, because they were no longer providing the lightsaber carrying cases. They were giving you a glorified bag to put them in. And I know there was again, minor uprising. And so I kind of knew that going in. So once you checked in, they take down your information. They obviously ask for your galactic credit card, not making that up. You do all that. But before you get to that point, they say, they're very matter of fact. They don't mince words. They say, we are no longer providing bags because of a supply chain shortage. They actually say that. They don't make any Star Wars like terminology in there. They say, so we're going to offer you 10% off the experience, but if you are so inclined to want a traveling case for your lightsaber, Doc Ondors is more than happy to supply them at 50 credits each. And like I said, I didn't want the lightsaber carrying case. The thing that bothers me, though, is that like when I booked that experience like 2 weeks in advance, it still said on the website, you get the carrying case. And this was long after this controversy started sometime in like December. And it's like, if you're not going to provide the carrying case any longer, just take that off the website. Like, just like, how hard is it to delete a sentence worth of text? Because at this point, it is legitimate, like, false advertising. It really is. If you don't plan to offer it, then take it off the website. Like I said, I didn't care. I just kind of shrugged and I said, yeah, I understand. But how Savi's workshop works is that once you check in, you swipe your credit card, they give you 4 different lightsaber types to choose from. They give you, I'm going to pull up on my phone right now, just so I have it in front of me.
I do want to send this picture, though. There's a person in the background of one of your photos that obviously did not make the right choice with theirs, because they are looking very disdainfully at you with yours.
All right. Zenger, please describe to the audience at home what you just sent me.
Okay. I need to pull up the original photo real quick, so give me just a split second to do that. Because like I was like, oh, I'm gonna look at some of the pictures while Zach's talking about this stuff. And I'm like, I really want him to get to the lightsaber thing, because earlier on I was sitting there and I was like, oh, that's really cool. He built a lightsaber. We're not gonna reveal the color. And there's part where you're holding it up, and I'm sure Zach's gonna talk about it. But if you zoom in the background, there's a kid like looks so disappointed with their life choices. And they're holding an orange lightsaber. It's like you're holding one of the cooler colors and you're upset. And they are staring directly at Zack.
Giving you the stink eye.
Yeah, they are. And I think
Giving
it's
you the
because of what
stink eye.
color he picked. Just throwing that out there. Anyway,
Like, that was my favorite color. You got it.
Yeah.
I'm going to get it now.
Yeah. Did they get it, Zack? Did this individual come hunt you down with their orange lightsaber?
What was weird was that because clearly Zenger's referencing like a 11-year-old girl. And what happens is, like, when you sign up for Savi's workshop, once you pay, and you're in the basically like wait line, they give you 4 different lightsaber hilts to choose from, like types. Like, one of them is peace and justice, one of them is power and control, elemental nature, and protection and defense. The one that's clearly the type that is steep in the dark side is power and control. And the little girl that like Zenger is referencing, she chose power and control. And I know that because after you swiped your credit card, you get put like in a little pen with the other people that are going to be part of like your lightsaber building experience. And so the cast member, he was really cool. Like, he was going around like asking us like why we chose what we chose. Again, really engaging stuff. Like, again, cast members, 10 out of 10, phenomenal. And when he got to her, she's like, I did power and control. And he's like, someone kind of, like I said, he was cool. Like, he was playing into Star Wars, or he's like, it's like you feel like extreme passion then. And he was really like feeling it. Cause like, even at one point, like, he asked me why I picked what I picked. And I picked protection and defense. And he's like, like, why would you pick that? Like, that's a really like ornamental type hilt compared to like other ones. And I'm like, I wanted to go for something a little more like High Republic. And he's like, and he started like playing into like High Republic stuff. So clearly, like, depending on where you are in Galaxy's Edge, they are reading the ancillary media. Like, it depends. Like when it is that like one-on-one experience, they do know infinitely more about like the lore than like someone whose job it is to like stand outside and hold a sign that says like you are 180 minutes away from like the front of the line.
No, I mean, so do you get to pick the color of it too and everything?
Yes. So basically, so exactly how Savi's workshop works is that like I think it was like Micah Portknight in the Facebook group described it to us a couple weeks ago. He's like, you need a reservation for this. Like, even when I was there, a couple people showed up and they're like, so this is where you build the lightsaber? And they're like, yeah, but like, do you have a reservation? And they're like, here's my money. Take my money. I want to build a lightsaber. And like, unfortunately, we can't do that. This is a reservation thing. And much like I knew, like what Micah told, like, he was like, there are a lot of angry, disgruntled people because they're just like, take my money. I want to build a lightsaber. And they're like, it doesn't work that way. Like, you need a reservation. And there's a lot of like angry people that like, they're just like, I want to spend money. Let me spend my money here. So basically, once you do that, you get to pick one of these 4 lightsaber designs, and they give you a pin, and they give you like the equivalent of like a sabacc card. And for the record, Chris, I did look for a sabacc card set, and I could not find one. I will get into, because this happened beforehand, but I did go into Doc Ondor's Den of Antiquities, and they did not have that. They didn't have it at the bazaar either. So so once you like swipe your credit card, they give you a pin, and the pin is a emblem of what type of lightsaber you want to build. So for mine, the protection and defense, it was that emblem, and the other 3 have their own emblems, and they tell you to wear it over your heart. So once you go into Savi's workshop, they'll be able to give you the specific lightsaber scraps that you'll need in order to construct your lightsaber. And on top of that, they give you a card, and the card basically is just a way of proving that you paid to be there, that it doesn't really mean anything. It's just basically a ticket to get you into the place.
No, Zach, you paid and had a reservation.
Thank you, Zenger. Thank you. I paid and I had a reservation. Thank you for making that clarification.
Don't want to mislead people that they're like, oh, well, I could have just paid and got here. It's like, nope, you have to have a reservation too, apparently.
Damn straight. So once you get in, you provide, you put your little like thick ticket, and you have your pin over your chest. And once you get in, you have like he had a name. Like I don't remember what it was, but it's this cast member, and he's basically
Steve.
like your master. No, I wish he's your master of ceremonies for crafting this lightsaber. And again, really somebody who's like has a very specific spiel. And he's talking about all this stuff about like crafting your own journey in the Force, like blazing a passage forward for like who you are. Really cool. Like really playing into the fact that this is like a genuine real life experience. And in my group, there's about 12 people. There's 12 lightsaber building stations, so it was at capacity. And some of the videos I watched beforehand, you could tell they were limiting it because of COVID for the last 18 months or so. And there was 2 kids. The one kid that Zenger was referencing, the little girl, she bought into it. I think it was either 1 or 2 spots to the right of me. There was this boy, maybe about 10 years old, and he was just looking at this as a way to get a glorified toy. He was not looking at this as if it were an experience. It was, me want lightsaber, me want to swing. I'm pretty sure like the moment we walked out of the thing, he almost dropped it. It was hysterical. Like both Rachel and I were really hoping, because he was obnoxious. Like the moment he built it, he was like swinging it around, which they tell you not to do, like in this really small room. But no, basically what happens is you walk into Savi's, they pull out the chest of different like lightsaber hilt parts based on what it is that you already like, what type of lightsaber you want to build. The story is that because it's they find these parts, they're being scavenged, and that's where Rey plays into the story. They're like, oh, we don't like these lightsaber parts. We go to different worlds trying to like scavenge them, and we collect them. And we're very fortunate in this instance to be able to provide you with enough materials to build a lightsaber. When it comes to the crystal, they provide you with a kyber crystal, and they have one of those canisters from Rogue One that we see on Jeddah in the Imperial hover tank, and they bring it around to you, and you get to pick your color crystal. You get a choice of 4 different colors. You get blue, green, purple, or red. There are different colors at Doc Ondor's Den of Antiquities. There's a white kyber crystal, which I did buy. And I want to say there's a yellow crystal. There's that one as well. So you get to pick of one of 4 different colors. You pick that. And then you basically, over the course of 10 minutes, you build your lightsaber. They provide you with basically an ignition hilt, and you have all these different components you can choose from, whether it be the hilt, the end cap, where the emitter blade is. You spend about 10 minutes doing this, and at any point, if you struggle to do it, they
kick you out.
No, you spend too much money to get kicked out at this point. At any point, if you have any sort of questions or whatnot, they're there to help. A couple times with mine, I didn't screw mine on 100%, and they fixed it for me. No, it was neat.
It's really cool.
Yeah, it's really neat. So like I said, just kind of going through the entire thing, like for those, as Zenger loves to say this, we're providing pictures in auditory medium, but I'm posting it in the group chat right now. If you follow the Facebook group, you have seen these pictures. So you follow my personal Instagram account, you've seen these. I would imagine that whenever this episode debuts, Chris will 100% post them on the Instagram account. It's that notion of, you really like, even like trying to get the kyber crystal in the middle of the like shaft of the lightsaber. I don't want to say it's an arduous experience, but it feels kind of earned once you place the kyber crystal in there. And while this is all going on, like both beforehand and afterwards of crafting the lightsaber, the room you're in is reacting to this MC of building a lightsaber. This ultimate guide. At one point, like Yoda gets involved and the room turns green, and he kind of like interacts with you very similarly to what he does with Ezra in Rebels, where he's commenting on what you've done, how you've taken your first steps into a larger galaxy. It's neat. I would imagine this is something that to a kid, like a hardcore Star Wars fan as a kid, is mind-blowing. I cannot fathom doing this as a kid, because I think this is one of those things that just if you like Star Wars as a kid or are predisposed to like it, this just brings you to like almost like a Nirvana tier. I think I've mentioned it a couple times on this podcast that like back in 2003, I had the chance to fight Darth Vader at Star Wars weekends. I still have the little piece of paper I have telling me I'm a Jedi Padawan framed. As a kid, I would imagine Savi's workshop being that equivalent. It really, really elevates that notion of being in a galaxy far, far away in a way that nothing else can.
This is great. This is like, I was really worried because like when we talked about this before you went, we've had a few conversations about Galaxy's Edge, and Zack used to get very cynical saying, well, when do they ever build a lightsaber in the Star Wars movies? That's not even a thing that happens in the movies. That's barely a Star Wars thing. And I'm like, well, Knights of the Old Republic, this or that. And he was, I didn't think he would be reacting this way, but he's had this almost religious come to Bendu moment, like over this whole thing.
I will say, okay, because like I said, because we're kind of like outside of just going to Docking Bay 7, which was a quick service restaurant. This is pretty much my experience at Galaxy's Edge and Black Spire Outpost is almost over. There's just some things I want to touch upon, just like overall about just this as a whole. I will say it is the equivalent of like a Star Wars pilgrimage. I apologize if that's sacrilegious in any way. I genuinely do, but I can't think of a better term other than that. I will say though, it's a way of decleansing the cynicism, because I think as a Star Wars fan, and I did go into this open-minded. I did not go into this with like the Zack cynicism, like Chris said, of like technically like lightsabers are only built like on a mission to Ilum. Anything outside of that is sacrilegious, but at the same time, though, they do give an in-canon explanation of this, because you're technically not building this lightsaber as a Jedi Knight. You are paying Savi in his workshop, which I know Zenger's read Black Spire Outpost. There's a whole thing. No. There's a whole. You didn't read that one?
No.
Okay.
Zenger's telling me to. I won't.
Okay, because I remember reading the Black Spire Outpost book from like 2+ years ago, and when V Marati is in there, she talks about like how like scavenged lightsaber parts are a thing that happen throughout the galaxy. Like there are people looking for components, so it does. I don't want to say play into the lore, but it leans into Star Wars lore. And
I just wish that if you did get all nerdy, they have nerds on standby they send out to have a argument with you to get you to stop.
Yeah, like I'm primed to do that. I mean, like we have Star Wars Legends and canon material is rife with non-Jedis using lightsabers. Probably the earliest example, if you exclude the films, is Thal Jobin pulls a lightsaber out of his pocket in the Droids episode, The White Witch, to cut open a sewer grate like it's no big deal, and you never see it again after that. So, you're just one of those guys.
That's what they do. They sell is that, as in like, could this, like I said, Yoda gets involved at some point through like disembodied voiceover, and it's neat. Like it's cute. I don't think it's something that's made for adult fans. I think Disney's happy just to collect my money just as much as anybody else. But I think to a kid, it has that same potential to make a lifelong fan, even though it's not really grounded in anything we've ever seen before in Star Wars lore. One thing I will say though, because like I said, there's some other key aspects before I give my final judgment on all of this, is the shops. Once again, like I did go through all the shops. There are, beyond the Galaxy's Edge Black Spire Outpost shops, there are other spots in the park that sell Star Wars merchandise. I much like Disney Springs, I was severely underwhelmed by the merchandise available. I remember like when Rachel and I walked into Doc Ondor's Den of Antiquities. Once again, I was so excited. I'm just like, oh, because like one thing I did want walking in, like before even leaving for this trip, Chris might have seen it. They did make Maul's lightsaber from Clone Wars season, the final season. They made that as like a legacy lightsaber. And for those of you who don't know, they have made about like, oh God, what, Chris, at least a dozen legacy lightsabers, as in like ones from the movies, from the TV shows, whether it be, oh God, Obi-Wan's episode 1 lightsaber, Darth Vader's, Luke Skywalker's episode 6, Luke Skywalker / Anakin's, like the list goes on. And
I bet it's more like 20. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like the list goes on and on. And like one lightsaber I really did want to buy, but I knew they wouldn't have it prior to leaving, was the reforged Skywalker saber. I knew that one was no longer available, but I really liked that Maul lightsaber from Clone Wars. And so like when I got to Doc Ondor's, I was like, oh my God, like I'm already spending like $200 for my own lightsaber. Do I really want to spend like almost like another $200 on another one? And when I got in there, and anyone who's seen any of the pictures, they have a bunch of glass cases with like the really high-end merchandise. And when we walked in, out of those like 4 glass cases, like 3 of them were empty. Like literally just like nothing in there. And like the 1 or 2 that weren't empty, you could tell they just put other merchandise in there to make it look good. And I was just like this is it. I'm like this is supposed to be like you're Disney. You want me to be spending hundreds of dollars, if not more, on merchandise. Where is it? Like I want to spend money. And I was just like so disappointed, because like even the stuff that wasn't in the glass case, the stuff that was on the walls was very similar to what I found at Disney Springs. It was like the Luke Skywalker bust. I think there was a Palpatine bust. It wasn't anything to get excited about. It was like $130. It wasn't anything to get excited about. You would have found better stuff like at sideshow.com. It was underwhelming. Like they did have lots of Sith and Jedi holocrons, but those were like $50 each. And I know like if you plug different kyber crystals into those, they react differently. Really wasn't impressed by that. They did have lots of lightsaber carrying cases though.
Ooh.
They did have lots of those.
Angry Zack incoming.
No, like I said, I kind of wrote that off. But no, I was like, I really
Angry Zack outgoing.
Like I really, like, part of me was genuinely like looking forward to seeing that like Leia lightsaber hilt that everybody knows I am so infatuated with. And the fact that like I was expecting having to like resist the urge to buy that. In reality, it wasn't even there for me to like gawk over. And I think that was kind of one of those things. Like I remember back in the day, as somebody who rode Star Tours, like in 2002, 2003, all the time, you would walk out of there and walk into Tatooine Traders, and like they literally had every single toy you couldn't find at like Toys R Us, Walmart, Target. They had like dozens of each figure, every vehicle. Pretty much like, was it like priced well above MSRP? Of course. But like if there ever wasn't anything you couldn't normally find, you knew it was going to be there. And so like walking in this time, like I'm not going to lie, like Star Wars wise, the only things I bought from Disney this time was the Boba Fett t-shirt, and I bought the white kyber crystal for my lightsaber because you couldn't get that through the normal experience.
You know what? Now that you mention it, I really did mess up by not trying to have you find the most recent droid builder set they put out that has the lava boat
that was there.
Droid.
I did.
Oh.
You want to hear something really interesting about that? I saw that at Disney Springs in the Wonderful World of Disney, like a mega super duper gift shop, the one that's like tens of thousands of square feet. That was there. That was not at Galaxy's Edge or Black Spire Outpost, I mean.
Yeah, that is like, so since you were there in like the early 2000s, like they do have this sort of parallel line that's only available at the parks. That's this droid builder thing. Frankly, I think the graphic design on the cards is god awful, and it's really embarrassing how terrible they look. But they make a lot of R2 units and other droids that you can't get, that are not. They're I think they're Droid theoretically Depot. Made by Hasbro. Yeah, it's I think, yeah, like the mold for the R2 is the same as the Hasbro one. I'm sure Hasbro is somehow involved in the production, but it's like they're Disney products rather than Hasbro products. So I'm sure that's the reason for it.
I will say though that I have everything, because like I did try the blue milk. the only thing I did not try out of all the Galaxy's Edge, Black Spire, the Droid Depot. I did walk through the Droid Depot. That place was hectic as hell. That felt like a literal bizarre marketplace. That place was a madhouse, and that's where they had like, oh god, I don't even know what size replica it would be of like Chopper, R2D2, C3PO, like not as small as like Chris was talking about, like that fairy droid from Mandalorian season 1 finale. It wasn't like action figure size; it was bigger than that. The Droid Depot,
they're about quarter scale, I think, but that's a little bit canon breaking to me to have quarter scale R2s that you build in Galaxy's Edge, but that's
you don't build R2. Like you can buy him off the shelf, like in a box. You don't build him like you can build BB units, you can build R2 units.
I was just talking about the scale, but I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, like I said, no, like the Droid Depot I've heard is a lot of fun. Like if you have kids, because you can basically just kind of like piecemeal, like basically it's almost like a conveyor belt, and you pick pieces off of it and build your own droid. It's cool. Like it's a really cool thing, but like I think it's also, I think, $100 per person, which isn't a huge deal, but like it wasn't something I was particularly interested in. But we did walk through. It's one of those things you can walk through without having a reservation, and it was like frantic. Like it felt like chaos in a way that like not much else at the park did, even beyond Star Wars. The blue milk, I did have a glass of the blue milk. Blue milk was pretty good. Like I enjoyed it. It was about $10 for one like 8-ounce cup. But it tasted good. I did make one comment to Rachel. If it weren't for the fact that I already had 2 alcoholic drinks at 9 a.m., I would have definitely gotten the one with rum in it. It tasted good. There's one of those things where like if it wasn't for the fact that it was $10 a glass, I would have gotten another one. I already spent too much money that day on Star Wars beverages. Beyond that, just 2 last things off the top of my, I guess 3 more things. When it came to the lightsaber and carrying that around the park, because I did have it by around 7:15 in the evening, and we still had like an hour and a half left to go in the park, I was like, well, I have like a 4-foot lightsaber. What am I going to do on some of these rides where there's nowhere to put it? We did go on Star Tours. I remember asking them, I'm like, hey, like, what am I supposed to do with this? They're just like, yeah, just put it on the floor. You'll be fine. I'm like, I just spent $200 on this. I really don't want to like be rolling around on the floor of a flight simulator. And like,
if only you had the complimentary bag.
Ain't that the truth? Very similar thing happened. We went on Toy Story Midway Mania, and I asked the cast member out front, I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? And they're just like, but like it fits perfectly on the floor, don't worry about it. And I'm just like, do you people not realize, like, I just spent $200 on this, like I want to kind of take care of it.
Yeah, they don't understand Star Wars nerds. Yeah, man, they think there's people who spend that on all kinds of random Disney nonsense at the park and do put it on the floor because they're not going to go home and count the scratches that are new.
Well, they want you to spend $200 more.
Well,
on it.
Yes, exactly, Joe. You took the words right out of my mouth. But the one thing I will say that, like, the thing that I that night, like when Rachel and I like got back home, like we got to the hotel, and I'm like, well, how do I get this home now? Because like obviously the blade detaches from the hilt. And
that's handy. I say that sarcastically because the one I own does not detach, so I had to ship it home.
Well, I'm glad you said that, Zenger, because like I went on Google that night and I'm like, ship home Galaxy's Edge lightsaber. So I found a couple of Reddit posts from like latter half of 2021, so it's relevant information, and like everyone's just like, oh, just go to first order cargo transport by the TIE fighter that Chris referenced from Colin Trevorrow's episode 9, and they'll ship it home for you if you provide like an address for them. And I'm like, well, that would have been nice if someone would have told me that at some point in like when I was doing all this, instead of telling me about like supply chain shortages when it came to carrying cases. They should have been like, oh, because you're all off, because all of you are off-worlders, go visit First Order Transport and they'll be happy to ship home your precious cargo. And I'm like, well, that would, again, why didn't you tell me that then? If this was a service that you guys were providing. And apparently they charge like $18 per lightsaber, which considering that like they provide the box, basically all you do is hand them the lightsaber and your address. Like that's a pretty nice convenience, because basically what happened with me was that next day I had to go to the UPS store, buy a poster tube for like $5 and pay UPS like $15 in shipping just to mail the blade. And the hilt I mailed via priority mail at the postal service. So like pretty much it cost me like $30 to mail the lightsaber home. And I'm just like, for $18, it would have been really nice just to literally hand this to Disney and been like, okay, thank you. I'm like, again, this is like literally money. Like I want to give you money. Make it easier for me to give you money.
So did the hilt have a giant box so you couldn't fit it in your?
No. The box, only the legacy lightsabers come with the box. The Savis do not come with any, now that they've done away with the carrying case, I'm not kidding you, got a 4-foot long like cellophane bag.
Ooh.
I will say that the hilt that I mailed Wednesday morning did arrive this afternoon. The blade, I mean. The hilt should arrive Monday afternoon. I'm just
struggling to understand why you mailed the hilt.
I was afraid. I was flying out of Orlando International Airport, which is a big airport. And I have seen on numerous occasions where if you get a very frustrated TSA agent, if they don't want to allow you with something, I've seen this happen. Like we're talking back in like 2003, like post like right after 9/11, they basically tell you, if you want to board the plane, we're throwing this out. Like you know
what? That's you make a great point. Like it's so funny to think of all the times I disregarded this possibility and like put a like. I won't even like, an excessively priced vintage action figure that probably has weird particles on it after 40 years, that if they put a swab over it, who knows what would be on it. Right. So you make a very good point.
Well, that's the thing that, like, again, I remember as somebody who flew post 9/11, like I remember my mother had like something, and this is before like the shoe bomber and like the 3.4 fluid ounces and a carry-on. Like she had something that like wasn't on the list, because my mother always did her research. Like she was methodical. And I remember like, oh God, I was like 10 years old. And they're like, my mother was like, well, why is this an issue? And and the TSA agent was like, do you want to get on the plane? My mother's like, well, yeah. And she's like, throw it out, or you stay here. And that's what they do. And I'm like, am I really going to risk that? Like over this? Like, am I going to roll the dice? And that's what I did. It's like, okay, because I did get it, the USPS package insured. So like technically if they lose it, like I will be reimbursed, but at the same time though, like I'd rather have the item. It's just the reality of it. I really wish Disney in part of the spiel that the cast members have to learn, they would make it, oh God, abundantly clear that if you don't want to carry this 4-foot prop along with you, like bring it here, and for $20 we'll mail it home for you. It's an opportunity to literally make money. Why wouldn't you want to alert guests to that?
You know what's awesome about this? There's going to be a guy out there who will listen to this podcast up till the 2.5 hour point, who will then go to Galaxy's Edge and not know about the first order shipping department. You're putting a PSA out there, but it's a little bit late in the game. But that'll happen at some point. That's fine.
I hope. Again, frustrating. Like just one of those things that like again, another instance where I wanted to throw money at them. And this is like, again, so I have a couple more points I want to bring, because I promise, because again, we're getting close to Cinemoddities levels of recording hours. It's okay. I did go to Docking Bay 7, which is one of the like quick service restaurants. I got a Ronto roaster, which is like the signature food, like quick service food of Galaxy's Edge. It's essentially like, imagine a gyro, but instead of like lamb/mystery meat, it's kielbasa. It was fine. It was, I think it was like $14 or $15. Was it overpriced? Yes, but it tasted fine. Like imagine a gyro, but instead of like lamb mystery meat, it's a kielbasa. It was neat. It was fine. Rachel got some form of like fried chicken, but like it was like a cube with macaroni and cheese and broccoli. She said it tasted good. I didn't try any of it. Gotta trust her word for it. One thing I will say, which was something that actually, when I went to Galaxy's Edge on the 18th, was novel, that had not happened before. When you walk next to the Colin Trevorrow TIE Fighter and the First Order cargo business, whatever it's called, there was this giant empty space that had a bunch of like topiary plants in front of it. And Rachel like asked me, she's like, what's that? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, it's an empty spot in the wall. Like something clearly is going to go in there at one point. And then that night, like I saw on my Twitter feed, apparently that's going to be the docking location for the Galactic Star Cruiser. That's going to be the slot where the shuttle, that when it departs the Galactic Star Cruiser, when it docks in Batuu, that's where it's going to let all the people off. And apparently the 18th was the first day Disney, I don't want to say unveiled it, because it is literally a hole in the wall. Like legit, it is a hole in the wall that's being blocked by plants. Yeah, that had never been like unveiled before. So we got to experience it. I cannot put that in lowercase letters as much as I can. Experience a literal hole in the wall that was blocked by plants. I'm trying to think what else was there. Like I said, walking around, it's cute. I'm trying to think of anything else. Just kind of walking around. They're really, I will say, Chris, that I know we've talked about it a few times now over the last couple of months, that like when you get to experience the Falcon, you get to experience it in the same way that like Luke and Obi-Wan and the droids do. That must be Disneyland's version, because when you approach the Millennium Falcon in Orlando, it does not appear that way. It's not that angle. You do not experience it that same way. As someone who's 6 foot tall, maybe I'm missing something here, but you do not experience it the way that they do, kind of like turning a corner and you like walk into like this docking bay. It is not that.
Interesting. You'd think they wouldn't put so much emphasis on that design choice.
It might be the Disneyland version though. So I can't attack them, because technically Disneyland's version did open before Orlando's. So it's very well possible that whatever promo video they threw that line into could be their version. I know there are some differences like that, and they're more aesthetic.
Yeah, I haven't
anything else.
I haven't looked at it deeply. I think the layout is like very slightly smaller at the Disneyland one, but you know, this has been cool. You gave me a lot to. I don't know if there's anything else you want to cover. You gave me a lot to think about.
Technically, okay, I want to give my overall ruling on Galaxy's Edge, or rating maybe. And then there's one final thing I just got to tell Zenger, as the unofficial correspondent for Marvel, like Disney nonsense on the ZengThis podcast. I think he will find interesting.
Yay.
So overall rating on Galaxy's Edge, Black Spire Outpost. I think, as a Star Wars fan, it is a very purifying experience. I think if you are a very cynical Star Wars fan and you go in with an open mind, it will wash away a lot of those cynical thoughts. I think you have to walk in with an open mind, though. You do have to walk in with an open mind and let them kind of like be like, you're standing on the beach and let the waves crash over you. If you walk in there wanting to hate it, I think you will. I also think, as a theme park, again, this is the 3 different layers on rate. Much like in the beginning of this episode, there's the Star Wars fan rating, the theme park rating, and the general just populace rating. As a Star Wars fan, I think it can win you over easily. But you have to walk in with an open mind. As a theme park fan, I think the potential is there. It just needs to be refined a little bit more. I think that there's a lot of fun to be had, but like they need to really step up their game. Again, fix the animatronics, fix the mechanics of the like the Millennium Falcon thing when it comes to like levers and stuff. Make it palatable. Make it like, again, no, I don't want to say make it more like lowest common denominator though, but really like make it like the lightsabers. Tell people about the idea, like, okay, you can have this mailed to you so people don't have to worry about like, will this fit on a ride? Like part of me was wondering, how the hell do you fit this on Rock and Roller Coaster starring Aerosmith? There's literally there's nowhere to put it. Like what do you do? And plus, I remember in the ZengThis episode with Ellie, we talked about lockers. There's no lockers that fit the lightsabers. They don't have 4-foot long cubby holes. So I don't know what you would have done. Like I got lucky and didn't build this thing until 7:15 at night. What happens if you start building this thing at 9 o'clock in the morning? Like, what do you have to do? Sit there, bring it out to your car, or hope that like you have someone that doesn't want to go on the rides and I'll hold on to it for you? A lot of logistical stuff that they have not figured out or they don't care about.
Well, you just go straight to the first order FedEx.
Well, they haven't communicated that to you. So how do you know? It's one of those things where they again, it goes back to like logistical operations. It's just communicate the benefits of what you're doing to the audience. Like Rob always says, swipe your credit card here to have your lightsaber shipped back to your home planet. And then lastly, as a just general member of the populace, the only reason, ever since 2002, Disney has been in constant search of something that will be a Harry Potter killer relative to Universal Studios. They tried it with Avatar. It didn't work. I've never experienced Hogsmeade or, Diagon Alley. I have not experienced those.
Dang, the level of butcher that just went into that sentence.
Okay, let me try take two. Hogsmeade and Diagon Alley.
Better.
Thank you, Zenger. I think, considering for those of you who don't know, the story is, the anecdote is that Universal Studios Orlando expected their return on investment for Hogsmeade to be 2 years. They got that in 3 months because Hogsmeade was a runaway success in 2010. I don't think that Galaxy's Edge and Black Spire Outpost is going to be that for them. I don't think so.
Not with that attitude.
I don't think so. I don't think this is that, for the same reason why Harry Potter fans, much like Ellie, go there for that like one-to-one experience of being in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. I don't think it's that for Star Wars fans. I don't think it's that one-to-one experience. I do think, and this is my final point, and I promise to shut up and let Chris Zenger or Joe wrap up this discussion. I don't think this is going to be that for them for the time being. I will say that between Star Tours and Galaxy's Edge at Hollywood Studios, there's a very, very specific plot of land that is themed to the Muppets. That is the last remnant of like the New York Streets of America area. And what I think it is, at some point, whether it be a year, 5 years, a decade from now, that area is going to become Mandalorian themed. It's one of those things where I'm calling it now. I could be wrong. I don't think I will be. That area is so out of place because like we walked in between that area at least 4 times in our stay. And every single time Rachel turned around to me and she goes, "This area is so cool. Why doesn't it fit in with anything else?" And I said, "Honey, what you're looking at is the remnants of an extinct park. Everything that this was built around is gone." And considering that, like, while we were there, the longest wait time the Muppet Vision had was 10 minutes. And that essentially is a walk on. I think within the next 5 years, they are going to demolish that. And that will become either Navarro or something from a current or future Disney Plus Star Wars show. Like, I remember telling, because like my girlfriend, Rachel, she knows all about Baby Yoda, Grogu. Rob, like everybody else, has brainwashed her into calling him Big Whiskey.
Yeah.
So she kept saying, "Where is Big Whiskey?" And I was like, there is no Big Whiskey. There is no Mandalorian. There is no Cara Dune. There's none of them. And I 100% think they are either going to demolish the Muppets or I think they're going to leave Star Tours alone. Star Tours is working well enough. They're going to leave that alone, but there's enough real estate in that Muppet Vision remnants of Streets of America. Within the next 5 years, that's going to be turned into Mandalorian or Kenobi world.
Well,
it's going to be one or the other.
It's just going to be tattooing.
It's
going to be Mos Espa.
It's completely inexplicable that there's no Big Whiskey. No one is surprised that there's no Cara Dune.
Well, okay. A year ago, we would have been surprised if there was no Cara Dune.
Well, I think there's like a augmented reality Big Whiskey photo up somewhere around Tatooine Traders. Maybe you missed that, but I've seen pictures of that.
I don't doubt it, but like it's the whole idea that like considering that Grogu, Big Whiskey, it's funny. Rachel and I had a game like we did to keep ourselves amused as we were walking around. We called it Big Whiskey Punch Buggy. Every single time we saw someone wearing a Big Whiskey piece of merchandise, we punched each other. And like literally we probably looked like sadomasochists with the amount of bruises on each other's arms that day. There is more Big Whiskey. Like if you're looking for just one specific character when it comes to merchandise, there is no other character that's featured on more merchandise in that park than Big Whiskey. Like even Boba Fett, like there was like outside of like the 2 or 3 t-shirts and that like Boba Fett armor and jetpack hoodie, not even close to the amount of Big Whiskey merchandise running around Hollywood studios and just even Disney Springs too. So that's my final word on Galaxy's Edge is I don't think it's the Harry Potter killer that Disney wanted it to be, that they've been kind of chasing the dragon over for a decade plus now. I think as a Star Wars fan, it is rewarding. And eventually the whole Muppets and the last remnants of Streets of America will be demolished for some Disney Plus level area, whether it be Mandalorian or Kenobi. They're just biding their time because they need more experiences. They clearly there's demand, even though it's not Harry Potter level, there is demand and they don't have the capacity for it.
Well, I'm right now sort of debating whether I try and get into the Disneyland one before Celebration. It's probably a horrible idea. I should probably just wait and go to the Florida one another time. But you've made the choice even harder. Like if you'd come back very disappointed and cynical about the whole thing, you would have made my travel plans a lot easier. So I've got a lot to think about.
It's a lot, and I will say that like. Today, after being home now for 24 hours, I did calculate the entire cost of this. I will say this was for a 2-day stay at not even one of the more expensive Disney resorts. I have to say when it came to the Disney Dolphin, I did get a solid deal going through Priceline. Between that, the tickets, like rental car, plane tickets, you are talking about in the ballpark of like a $2,000 cost, give or take. And that's just 2 people for 2 days. And we, like I said, we did do everything right. We weren't cheap with anything. Like when it came to eating, clearly we ate in the park twice in one day, which is not a cost-effective thing to do. But I will say that like, if you are going to do this is not something you do every single day. You do this once. It's that typical Disney spiel. Disney has it down to a science that most people go to those parks once every 3.7 years. That was my philosophy. I have not been inside an actual Disney park since 2007. So I want to do this right. And my wallet is proof of that or the contents lack thereof of my wallet.
Yeah, that's sort of what I was expecting. And I think you were actually, by all accounts, it sounds like you were pretty responsible about your approach. You don't have a Palpatine cloak or anything silly like that. So you did a good job.
The only thing I really regret that I didn't buy was the Loth cat. The blue Loth cat that hisses. Like that's the only thing that like really I think about it. And I'm like, there's also a practical aspect too, because I'm like, how could I fit that in my carry-on? How could I have practically like fit this like 14 by 8 inch by like 6 inch like stuffed animal in my carry-on bag that hisses?
It is baffling to me that is the standout item to you, but to each their own. I haven't seen it. I haven't had a good look at this product. Joe, are you still there? Do you have any final remarks for Zach before
The question is, Joe, how many flights on the Galactic Star Cruiser have you booked since we started recording this?
I would say that it's a big fat 0. What it seems to me is like what they're missing in execution is because they have too much intellectual property. It seems like they're scattered. They don't know what to do with it. It seems like they're, before it was easy, put up a princess, make that princess, hire the actress for the princess, and there you go. They redid the whole Disney World and Frozen when Frozen came out. It doesn't seem like they have that feel to it anymore. It's like they have too much and they're going in too many different directions, and that's what's causing them to miss out on a bunch of different things that they used to capitalize on.
I will say Galaxy's Edge really does feel like a shotgun approach. It feels like they're trying to like cover all their bases, and you lose something in the process of that.
But that's it in a nutshell, because you said it yourself. You were looking to get so many awesome things. And what happened? You didn't get them because they weren't there.
Yep.
And any other trip you had before, if you wanted something that you knew was at Disney, you were able to get it.
Yep. Like, I agree. But one thing I will say though, like, and this is something that like I made fun of like in previous recordings, and I kind of can't wait to see like Chris's face once I say this. But like, is anybody who's friends with me on Facebook or who's in the Knights of Your Facebook group, that picture of me in front of the Millennium Falcon with the lightsaber at dusk, guess what? I am just as guilty as the rest of them. I got the social media image that alone is worth it. I'm just as guilty as charged. I am a hypocrite. I concede that picture, it was worth it. Did it cost me more money than I ever could think of a picture could cost? Yes, it did. But is it neat to look at? Was it fun to sit there, pose for a picture at dusk in front of the Millennium Falcon with a lightsaber? Absolutely. I am just as guilty as the rest of them.
I really thought this could go either way. And once I saw you post that up, I had a pretty clear idea of how this conversation was going to go. I'm really glad that you had a good time, because it's an ordeal and it's expensive to not have a good time. And I'm glad it seems to live up to what I thought it would be. And I'm also glad I haven't visually spoiler alerted myself too hard on the experience so far. It was great hearing about all that.
One last, this will be my parting words for Galaxy's Edge. I thought Zenger read the book Black Spire Outpost, but the character who founds like Black Spire Outpost, Vimarati, as we were walking out of Smugglers Run, was a walk around character under the Millennium Falcon. And I got a picture of this character, and I want it on the record that I have never in my time at Disney ever seen a walk around character look as angry as this character has. And I'm putting it in the Facebook chat right now, just so everybody can look at it in real time. I've never seen a cast member look this disgruntled before.
That's perfect.
Am I wrong, Joe? Am I wrong?
No.
She really looks like she's like, how it's like you can hear her internal monologue. It's like, she's like, you might be wondering how I got here.
It's like that moment, Zenger, from the Robot Chicken. Like, was it the third special? It's like you hear like, oh God, was it Bob O'Reilly? You hear, like, the guitar riff.
Yeah, me and one of my coworker friends like have the ongoing joke of whenever something dumb happens, we just sit there and it's like, this is the moment where it freeze frames and it goes, I bet you're wondering how I got into this situation. Well, let me tell you where it all started. And yeah, that is that freeze frame there. My only comment on this is, I mean, Ellie's pointed out, and you have too, that this is an experience. And that makes me like, if I ever get the chance to go, I'm excited. Like I'd love to be told, like, oh, we used to, use these to degrease pod racers or stuff like that, or it's basically like stuff like that. Those nice little touches, and knowing that the cast members take that time and effort to do that is really cool. I'm glad you had a fun time, Zach, but I can't wait for you to go to Dune World. Coming to your local Six Flags, I guess. I don't know where put that.
That feels like Dune would be a Six Flags experience.
It's like Action Park.
It's just a sand pit. It's just a goddamn sand pit.
It's a sandbox, not even a pit.
I got to tell you, Zach, when I first heard you were going to go down there, I thought we weren't going to get you back. I thought you were going to be a death stick dealer and one of the character actors that are going to be there. Hey, want a death stick?
I will say that at one point, like when we were waiting to get into Savi's workshop and the cast members talking about talking to us all like in character, like I kind of really leaned into it. I'm like, do I want to be that jerk and try to like beat the person at their own job by like my own understanding of the lore? And I'm just like, let's do it a little. Like I'm not going to be obnoxious about it, though, but I'm going to sit there kind of like beat my chest in front of the other group of 11 people who also spent $200 and be like, yeah, I understand it's probably better than the rest of you combined. And that was to stroke one's ego. That was nice. Like it's nice to do this in a forum where I'm not the only person that's like a Star Wars like goober.
But in a world, Zach Weber, would you be a character actor in that?
It's funny. Like, as somebody who knows Rachel in real life, what Joe knows, like at one point there's like stormtroopers above, like I think I said, there's like this land speeder like platform, and it's like being in a job interview and like, where do you see yourself in 20 years? Like I have a little like cartoon bubble above my head, and it's like Stormtrooper at Disney World just yelling at people. Oh yeah, I would be that person, like 100%. Like some of the people, like if you're allowed, like because again, like every single role that they have some of these cast members in is so specific. Like some of them are allowed to play with like lore, some of them are allowed to engage with like guests. If I was allowed to be one of those where I could sit there have some fun with people, oh absolutely. But like I think we've talked about what before, Chris, like the stormtroopers only have like pre-recorded sayings. They like push like a button like on their wrist gauntlet that allows them to like say specific things at a certain moment. They have maybe like a dozen phrases. That could be fun, but I think it'd be like that guy who I interacted with at the Savi's workshop. I think that would be a fun thing because he really like knew his stuff. It was fun to like go back and forth with him about like off-world travel and stuff like that. Yeah, like I said, I don't know. But I do have to say though, like part of me too, like not to get away from Star Wars, but like the Tower of Terror, like cast members as like the elevator operators, that is the truly fun job because they are hamming it up to like the umpteenth degree. And the whole time I'm just like I'm not an actor by any means, but like I know how to play into something if the time requires it. That I could get behind.
I wonder if they actually get dressed in their Stormtrooper armor at home or they have like a locker room.
They wouldn't let anybody off like property with that, Joe. You know that. There's no way it comes home.
Or go helmet off, give a kiss to the wife, be like, so I'll see you at 7, honey.
Like Zenger, do you want to explain to Joe the robot chicken sketch like regarding that?
Oh, what? The one where it's has to take his daughter to work.
Yep.
Yeah. It's basically the joke is Turk from Scrubs has to take his daughter to work with him, and it's like them getting the Tantive 4 or 5. I'm up too late. Them getting that, and then Vader choking. It's like poor so and so had to bring his daughter to work and everything, and chokes him out in front of her. And he I think there's a few other things happen. Anyways, due to wearing a helmet before, I'm gonna tell you this right now. Those things have zero visibility, so there's no way you're driving with those on.
You get a bus and they pick them all up. It's like going to school. They're all in their Stormtrooper uniforms.
Or a shuttle.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Not to steal the thunder away from Chris or Zenger, but are there any other questions, comments, concerns, snide remarks regarding Galaxy's Edge and Black Spire Outpost? I don't doubt it. Zenger, okay, this is my thing. I think Joe would find it amusing, but I think Joe would almost have to be kind of like dragged there by Blaster Point. Zenger, you will goddamn eat this up. You will eat. I think like 5 minutes in the cantina, and you would lose your mind for the better. Chris, I think Chris will find the redeemable aspects of it. I think he would overall rate it a net positive, but I think it would be almost too close for comfort. But no, I think I have the three of you. And if Russ were here, I think Russ would lose his mind no matter what, especially with his kids. Zenger, I think it's like almost like in a vacuum. Zenger would love it.
I'd literally be chewing scenery probably very quickly. Like
Zenger literally has his teeth around like the faux A-wing that's just sitting there. Sir, you're not allowed behind the gate. Zenger's like, I thought you may come out me chewing this right now.
Me freeze framing, jumping off it. I bet you're wondering how I got here. Sir, stop narrating yourself while we're chasing you.
Where'd that riff of Bobo O'Reilly come from?
That's my ringtone.
Oh my
Perfect.
God. Oh
Another
God.
perfect episode. Zach, take us out.
So conclude this episode of Knights of Vader, a Star Wars podcast. Check out the Facebook group Knights of Vader, where you'll see all sorts of pictures, comments, and memes about your favorite galaxy and other Star Wars nonsense. Instagram at KLV Podcast. Chris will definitely be taking a lot of my pictures and be posting them on there along with his own cute little infographics.
Absolutely.
If you like what you hear, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes or whatever podcasting platform you're currently listening to us on. If you're interested in other Zack shenanigans, check out the Cinemoddities podcast, where I have no idea when Rob's uploading it, but we did talk about the Twilight Zone Jordan Peele thing, which oddly enough connects to the Tower of Terror. And there's also the Matrix Resurrections discussion, which Rob and I recorded twice. So look forward to that. Beyond that, there is my co-host, Mr. Joe Yazzo. When you are not listening to your co-host recount their vacation through slides, what are you up to?
They probably find me next time they listen to the podcast, hopefully, on for the episode 5 of Book of Boba Fett. Coming to you soon.
Coming soon to the nearest Vesper nearest you, or Vespa.
Yes.
Zenger, I have to ask, as a listener of ZengThis, when are we getting the No Way Home discussion?
When's it going to be available on Disney Plus?
A while, because that's not technically a Disney movie.
On demand in March.
There you go.
Okay.
So there's your answer to that.
Has Ellie seen No Way Home yet?
Actually, the most recent episode of ZengThis reveals where all of us are with our Marvel watching.
Okay. I only have to ask because I wonder if this is going to be like Endgame 2.0, where like
no.
Ellie's just like, Garfield who? There's a president in this Spider-Man movie?
No, I mean we will get to it. The other thing is I was like, oh yeah, we need to watch the other Spider-Man movie, and she goes, we already watched Far From Home, and I'm like, no, Black Widow.
Wait, Zenger, has there been? I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Has there been a ZengThis episode on the Eternals?
No. There's a very, very derogatory comment about the Eternals by Eric, our host, who was not impressed. So you get his review of it.
Zenger, if you ever get to the Eternals, like let this be another like, oh God, like Crimes of Grindelwald or whatever. Can I please be on the Eternals episode, please?
I mean, since you were on the Dune, Iraq. Chris is like editing this part out. Yes, I will make a mental note of that to not do an episode based on that, so I don't have to fulfill this promise. Yes, of course, you can find ZengThis wherever you find great podcasts where you cover all nerdy topics. Zing Wars will be making a comeback soon with some more.
That doesn't exist. No, that doesn't exist. That's a lie. That's fake news. No, that there's no such thing as Zing Wars. No.
Also check out a Rack This, which is our all Dune related podcast that we're going to be starting soon.
It's even worse than Zeng Wars. I didn't know you could somehow scrape below the barrel. All right, Chris, when you are not listening to the Zeng Wars or Zeng Iraq This podcast, what are you up to?
Iraq This.
No, Iraq nothing. Chris, what are you up to?
As Zach said earlier, go ahead and follow at KOV Podcast on Instagram, and you can check out my personal page at the Chris Porteous on Instagram, and you'll probably find me back here talking about Chapter 5 of the brief illustrated pamphlet of Robert A. Fett.
Alrighty, folks. And with that being said, I really hope that if anyone listens to the Cinemoddities Spider-Man episodes and Rob found the clip from Far From Home where I forget who it is says, so guys, enjoy the next 4 hours of your life, because that is as long as this episode is going to be. 4 hours. Good night, but not goodbye. And as always, may the Force be with you.